Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order, and let's rise for the national anthem and our territories.
We would like to acknowledge
that we are here today
on the traditional territory
of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation.
Nous tenons à reconnaître que
nous sommes sur le territoire traditionnel
des Mississaugas de la Première Nation de Credit.
Thank you. You may be seated. Before we get to the approval of the agenda, I'd like to welcome everyone virtually into our first public board meeting in this COVID-19 era. And I just want to make sure that people know that they can be in a public meeting, what they can do to participate. As we move to this virtual public meeting, members of the public can continue to participate in our public meetings by watching the live stream and making delegation presentations and/or asking public questions electronically. As a reminder, members of the public who wish to submit public questions can email their full name and one question to publicquestions@peelsb.com. So public questions, all one word, at peelsb.com. Anytime from the start of the meeting up to the end of the question period. The questions will be read, or the questions one at a time will be read out loud during the public question period of this virtual board meeting, and a response will be provided. The chair may also designate a member of staff or trustee to respond. Per Appeal Bylaws G10, the duration of the question period will be limited in total to a maximum of 10 minutes unless extended at the chair's discretion. If an immediate response is not given or the board is unable to respond to all the public questions received during the 15-minute period, a response will be provided through email. Questions submitted outside the designated start time of the meeting will not be responded. If you would like your question to be answered during a public board meeting, it must be submitted during this designated time in future meetings. Start of the meeting to the end of the question period. If a parent or guardian or community member has concerns about a school matter, they can always reach out to the appropriate board contact as outlined on the board website Public Concerns Process, which can be accessed under the Contact Us section of the board website, Peelschools.org. Questions raised during the question period are expected to be issue-based and respectful. Due to privacy legislation, questions that identify personal information of students, families, or staff are not permitted. Members of the public speaking during question period must comply with the board's Safe and Accepting Schools policy number 48. So, we'll now go to the approval of the agenda. We have two additions, or actually one deletion and one addition to the agenda. 7.1, the delegation. They withdrew their delegation because they'd like to do it in the traditional live setting, so they'll wait till when that happens. As well as 10.1, the Appeals Board response to COVID-19 pandemic closures, Community of Care Plan will be presented by the director. So we're going to put this on the floor to be voted as the agenda. So Let's start. Trustee Davies, do you put it on the floor?
I do. Thank you.
Trustee Benjamin, do you second it?
Yes.
Okay, I'll now go through the roll call of votes for. So Trustee Davies, do you approve the agenda?
Yes, thank you.
Trustee Benjamin, do you approve the agenda?
Yes.
Trustee Lawton, do you approve the agenda?
I do, thank you.
Okay, Trustee Cameron?
In favor.
Okay, Trustee Crocker?
Yes, I do.
Okay, scroll up further. Trustee, unmute you. Trustee McDonald?
I'm in favor.
Okay, Trustee Green in present, so he's there. Trustee McDonald, and so of all those people present, we have it passed. So the agenda will move on as way. So a special presentation by United Way will be the first item in our agenda, and I believe we have that being presented here.
Good evening, Director Joshua, Chair McDonald, Board of Trustees, Superintendents of Education, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of this year's United Way Campaign Committee, I want to thank you all for allowing us to share some closing comments about this year's campaign. As the chair of the 2019-2020 United Way campaign, it is a pleasure to be here tonight to celebrate the work of the Peel District School Board. We're 17,000 employees and 155,000 students strong. It is the work of the schools and work sites with staff and students who made this year's campaign a success. This year, we aim to inspire possibility and ignited enthusiasm in all of us as we raise awareness of the needs within Peel. That includes our families and students, and the ability to raise an outstanding amount of funds. We are proud to have raised an impressive $143,774. This will go a long way to help the United Way region support our Peel families, especially with their recent partnership with the federal government to support homeless youth, people living in poverty, isolated seniors, and many others who are now at even higher risk of poor outcomes due to COVID-19. Our campaign saw many schools and work sites raise incredible amounts. We saw funds coming through activities such as silent auctions and staff fundraising events. As chair, it has been my joy to be part of such a strong partnership that I share between the Peel District School Board and the United Way Greater Toronto. It is indeed marked by a rich tradition of community giving, and it is our hope that our relationship will continue to flourish for years to come. This year's campaign was launched at our October board meeting by sharing the following saying, "It takes a village to raise a child." This sums up the need for our partnership with the United Way Greater Toronto and the reason for our support. With our community partnerships and connections with 51 agencies that deliver 95 programs in the region of Peel, we cannot provide our students and families with the appropriate and much-needed support they deserve. On a personal note, I wish to thank all members of the United Way Committee who put in countless hours throughout this year's campaign to ensure actions were both intentional and successful. On behalf of the committee, I would like to thank Superintendent Logue for his commitment to the United Way campaign, serving as our senior admin liaison. He has championed our cause extensively throughout this campaign. Superintendent Logue embraced the spirit of the campaign immediately from its beginnings last August and has worked diligently this year alongside the senior admin team to engage all board employee groups through Twitter campaigns, offering the services to the winners of the employee payroll deduction draws, and through system-wide communications to encourage an increase in employee payroll deductions. The 2019-2020 senior administrative team has walked the talk, working to make our community aware of the home advantage that United Way programming provides for our students and families within their own neighborhood and community. Please join me in thanking Director Joshua for his leadership, passion, and the renewed lens he has brought to inspire this year's campaign. I know that the United Way campaign has been close to our hearts in the Peel District School Board. You have embraced the campaign with excitement and optimism, and for this we are grateful. Thank you once again to Ashley Bigda for your ongoing support of the campaign's communication needs with our 250 plus schools and work sites. A huge thank you to Jennifer Paiva, who managed and tracked the incoming funds and related communications. You both did a fabulous job. Thank you also to Debbie Wattier for her administrative support throughout the entirety of the campaign by organizing contact lists, preparing certificates, and ensuring that information was gathered and shared. I also want to say an overwhelming thank you to Simone Wallace, who served as Vice Chair this year, for organizing and recognizing tonight the award-winning schools and sites for their dedication to the campaign. Finally, to Raj Chandegra, our United Way Greater Toronto liaison. Your insight and wisdom has been invaluable. Your commitment to the United Way is inspiring, and we could not have embarked upon this campaign journey without you. Finally, thank you to the Board of Trustees, whose unwavering support has been the inner fountain for this worthy project for many years, and it is truly appreciated as we look towards the fall campaign. We have so many reasons to celebrate and recognize the outstanding contributions and activities at schools and worksites during the 2019-2020 United Way campaign. First, the Harold M. Brathwaite Recognition Award is given to the school that has best exemplified the true spirit of the United Way for their commitment to inspire possibility in their community. We would like to present this year's award to Mount Royal Public School. You have demonstrated creativity, originality, and fun through the many tweets, retweets, and likes on Twitter, as well as your silent auction. You have certainly captured the spirit of the United Way's commitment to building stronger communities through the inclusion of all stakeholders in your campaign. We will present this award to Principal Amr Zuberi and staff. Next, we have the United Way Special Recognition Awards for Achievement for Top Contributions. The top two elementary schools are Fern Forest Public School and Churchill Meadows Public School. The award will be presented to Principal Gurney Gill for Fern Forest and to Principal Adele Hollinsworth for Churchill Meadows. The top secondary school is Glen Forest Secondary School, and the award will be presented to Principal Sherry Riddle to accept on behalf of the school community. The top contribution in the Worksite department is awarded to alternative programs at our central board office. We would like to invite Superintendent Edwards of Alternative Programs to accept the award. On behalf of the United Way Committee, thank you to the school communities and worksites for continuing to support United Way. Our collective efforts and contribution will have a long-lasting and positive impact on the community agencies this year and in the years ahead. We look forward to this continued support and generosity in our next 2020-2021 campaign. Thank you.
I want to thank Alvin Au, and I'm now going to turn it over to Michael Logue, who will unmute your mic. You have some words to say as well. Michael, are you there? I guess not. Is he coming? Michael Logue? Okay. Texting? No? Michael Logue, are you there?
Sorry. Yes, can you hear me, Chair McDonald?
Yes, I can. Yes, please go ahead. Thank you.
Sorry about that. Some technical difficulties here. One moment, please.
That's my line.
So thank you, Chair McDonald, and good evening, Director Joshua, Board of Trustees, colleagues, and members of the public. It's my pleasure to provide some words tonight around our campaign for the United Way. This year, I had the honor of working alongside a team of dedicated staff in collaboration with Raj Chandegra, Corporate Donations Manager for the United Way Greater Toronto, and together we executed a very successful campaign. My sincere thanks to our team members, including Ashley Bigda from Communications, Jennifer Paiva from Finance, Vice Chair Simone Wallace, and Chair of this year's campaign, Principal Alvin L. from Heart Lake Secondary. You just heard from Alvin, and as you're aware, we launched this year's campaign in the midst of job sanctions. Nevertheless, under Principal Au's leadership, our PDSB community pulled together to ensure that our region would be able to fund much needed supports to the benefit of our students, staff, and families. Details on the campaign have been provided by Alvin, and you've just been able to hear those. Raj Chandegra also wanted to share his appreciation. And from Raj, he says, I would like to acknowledge the achievements of the Peel District School Board. We are working very closely with federal, provincial, regional, and local government to ensure the Peel, Toronto, and York services have the resources and capital to ensure direct community needs are being met. We are busier now with our work in Peel than ever before to meet the immediate needs of our community. Please extend a heartfelt thank you and appreciation for our partnership with Peel District School Board, the leadership team, the campaign lead, Chair Alvin Au, Vice Chair Simone Wallace, Jennifer Pava as Treasurer, Ashley Bigden Communications, and all the community members who support the campaign. I would also like to acknowledge all school-based and corporate site-based fundraising initiatives from teachers, students, and all of the staff. Wishing all of the family at the Peel District School Board to stay safe and well for the coming months. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Superintendent Logue. Much appreciated. So we'll move, just before we go on to the next item on the agenda, I just want to make sure everyone in the public understands who's attending this virtual meeting. We have regrets from Trustee Sohi and Andrews, who are not attendants. As of now, we don't have Trustee DeCroop or Marshall online, but we have Trustee Lawton, Trustee Davies, Trustee B. McDonald, who's myself, Trustee Green, Trustee Cameron, Trustee K. McDonald, and Trustee Crocker online. So we'll go to item 2. Does anyone have any conflicts of interest? Seeing none, we'll move on to the board minutes for approval. We're going to take them all as together, 3.1, 3.2, and 3.3. Can I ask Trustee Lawton to put those on the floor?
You may, and I do.
And Trustee Cameron, can I ask you to second that?
I will.
Thank you. Now we'll go through the vote. Trustee Davies?
Yes.
Okay. Trustee Benjamin?
Yes.
Trustee Lawton?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Cameron?
In favor?
Okay. Trustee Crocker?
Yes.
Okay. Trustee Nar, who's a student trustee, is non-binding vote?
Yes. In favor?
Thank you. Just scrolling up. Trustee Aurora, a student trustee, who's a non-binding vote?
Yes, I'm in favor as well.
Thank you. And Trustee McDonald? K. McDonald?
So I'm in favor.
Thank you. Trustee Green, who's present, says yes, and myself, so that's unanimous. So we go on to the next item. Chair's request for written questions from trustees. Do I have any written questions from trustees?
Yes, I have some.
Okay, Trustee McDonald. Since we're in this virtual world, I'll remind all trustees the best way to is you can verbally say it, but we would like to have the written submission sent to Donna Baptiste by Friday if we're going to have these looked at the next board meeting. Okay, Trustee McDonald.
Thank you. According to the ministry review, the following is true. The data is clear that the PDSB is suspending secondary school students at a ratio of 2.2. That is, Black students are only 10.2% of the secondary school population, but approximately 22.5% of students receiving suspensions. Based on our review of the data, approximately 78% of the PDSB secondary school suspensions did not fit the parameters of the Ministry of Education's definition for other incidences between 2013 and 2019. That being said, is the senior administration going to review and expunge suspensions of Black students that do not meet the ministry's definition for those Black students that are still students in the board? Question 2. According to the ministry review, the data confirms that Black students are disproportionately streamed in the PDSB. The percentage of Black students in the PDSB by racial background in grade 9 and 10 in 2018 to 2019 is approximately 10.1%. But their participation in the following pathways based on the majority of courses taken are as follows. In academic, 7.7, in applied, 21.7, and in locally developed credit courses, 25.4. Will the senior administration be reviewing all grade 8, 9, and 10 option sheets where Black students were streamed to applied and locally developed courses? Will these Black students have a choice to change their pathways? Question number 3. According to the ministry review, the reviewers met with parents of a biracial student who told us that when they attended a curriculum night at the child's school, they were each upon entry given a pamphlet on school programs. The Black parent was handed a pamphlet on applied programs, and the white parent received a pamphlet on academic programs. This program is cogently illustrative of the institutionalized racism that manifests in the PDSB guidance system. And they also said, we wish to underscore the immediate and pressing need for Black guidance counselors, particularly males across the board, and for radically different ethos to motivate guidance services. Many students, parents, and teachers told us that there's an urgent need for guidance counselors that understand the need of Black students. Given the pivotal role of guidance counselors, what is the immediate plan for senior administration that there are more Black male guidance counselors in Peel high schools, especially given secondary staffing needs to take place? Number 4, on the board's website, under the Plan for Learning and Support, there is a table which has a breakdown by grade level, detailing key focuses, time frame for learning, method of instruction and assessment, evaluation and reporting. Under the kindergarten to grade 3 time frame for learning and suggested time is 5 hours of work per student per week. So who monitors that teachers are indeed adhering to these suggested times? I am aware it is an approximate amount of time, but my grade 2 son is only getting 5 minutes video per day and an assignment which takes him roughly 2 minutes to complete. In the last week, he was given no math. Can teachers be required to, so that's that question. And then she asked if teachers can be required to check in with students once per week. Another parent asked, at an unnamed school outside this board, their approach to assessment is based on 1, guidance given to schools by the IB governing body and the Ontario Ministry of Education, and 2, consideration of principles of fairness and equity. The final grades will be awarded based on students' performance up until the March break and during the COVID schools. Only demonstrated improvement to students' performance during this time will be taken into consideration when assessing final grades. The intention is not to lower grades where they are at the beginning of the period. So it was disheartening to hear that there have been informed by our board that students will be penalized if work not completed. My daughter came home and said that showed me the information on the website. So my question is this in fact true? Will this board be failing students? Before failing a student, is the board going to check the circumstances surrounding the student's inability to complete work or access the internet? Will the board also take into account students' mental well-being? Can the board clarify which set of communication is correct, as the first set of communication stated that students will not be penalized? The last communication said that if students don't log into their accounts, their credits will be at risk. Finally, will the board take into consideration students living in poverty? Several families have both breadwinners with no income, have to go daily without food and have increased anxiety about contracting COVID as a result of leaving the home often, as well as consideration given to affordability of the internet and reliability of the internet for students. This question has been answered in an email, I think, but Mr. DK, I won't use his full name, sent me this question. I just want to pose it for him, but he asked me this question. Could all parents be given an email indicating how to contact their child's teacher? When a parent does not respond to an email, could consideration be given in trying to make phone contact or contact via Canada Post? Is there any consideration given to teachers calling home to their students for regular check-ins? I'd just like to add, I have been out delivering computers, and some parents have not gotten any email. So that's something we need to consider. Number 7, did Minister Leche direct the chair, vice chair, and the director of education to run the board and exclude trustees from all communications and decision making? Number 8, I would like to argue that the trespass letter issued by Mr. Orugu on March the 9th is highly political and a discriminatory act. Not only is it illegal in my opinion, but the trustee, as the trustee responsible to explain the actions of the board to my constituent, Mr. Orugu, I am unable to answer any of his questions, and the board has not responded to his questions, his letter, and the public apology has not been forthcoming. We teach children every day to follow our character traits, including honesty, respect, and responsibility. When will we as a board model our own character traits and issue a public apology to Mr. Orugu and remove his trespass letter? Can the director please forward any evidence he possesses linking Mr. Orugu to the events listed in his trespass letter? Could the director please provide an estimate of the legal cost the board will incur if Mr. Orugu pursues legal actions? Thank you.
Okay, so as I said earlier, you'll have to submit all those questions in writing to Donna Baptiste. The last question cannot be answered in public, and we'll have to go in committee at our next board meeting for response.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else with questions, comments? Okay, we'll go on to Section 5, Notice of Motion and Petitions. So do I have any trustees with any notices of motions or petitions?
I do.
Okay.
Thank you. Be it resolved that all letters that have been sent to Chair Brad McDonald and or Vice Chair David Green from community members, and any letter sent out on behalf of the board since December the 1st, 2019, be shared with all trustees, and that all letters be responded to by the chair by April 30th, 2020. My second notice of motion, be it resolved that the board instructs the Director of Education to provide a detailed summary of all legal costs the board has incurred to date to defend human rights cases and monies paid out for settlement, and the number of human rights cases brought against the board. Where information is privileged, just indicating human rights case number 1, number 2 will be sufficient. Will the report also highlight how much money each lawyer received in the past 3 years defending human rights cases? Thank you.
So again, Trustee McDonald, you're going to have to send those to Donna Baptiste by Friday if we're going to be included in the.
I'll send it to her tonight. That's fine.
Okay, perfect. And we'll have to evaluate your. I'll be honest. I have to see it in writing. Your second motion. Yeah. So
the second motion is just about public funds, how we're spending it. So I think that's
so
the public's right to know that.
What can be made public and what can be not, but we'll advise you on that when we get it written in front of us and we can go forward. Thank you. Any other motions, notice of motions, petitions from trustees? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to section 6. We're going to take them all at once, but we're going to have item 6.1 being talked to by Trustee Crocker, is going to introduce the Earth Day. Earth Month.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes, we do. Please proceed.
Thank you. So through you, Chair, the Peel Board recognizes Earth Month in April, which includes the 50th anniversary of the International Celebration of Earth Day on April 22nd, 2020. Each year, more than 6 million Canadians join 500 million people in over 180 countries to encourage education and action towards protecting the environment. We're proud to acknowledge the Peel District School Board has worked with Ontario Eco Schools since 2009, and with the support of various local environmental organizations such as EcoSource and the Peel Environmental Youth Alliance for many years, to help normalize environmental habits in the lives of staff and students. There are now 104 certified eco schools in the board. As we practice physical distancing in response to COVID-19, we encourage the Peel community to celebrate Earth Month by developing a deeper understanding of environmental issues and reducing their environmental impact at home.
Thank you, Trustee Crocker. I'll move on to 6.2, the Sikh Heritage Month. On behalf of the Peel District School Board and the Board of Trustees, it gives me great pleasure to recognize Sikh Heritage Month at the Peel District School Board. As part of the board's commitment to equity and inclusion and to help better reflect student identity, trustees approved a motion on April 9, 2019 to recognize and celebrate Sikh Heritage Month in the month of April. The province of Ontario proclaimed Sikh Heritage Month in 2013, recognizing the important contributions that Sikh Canadians have made to Ontario's social, economic, and political cultural fabric. Unfortunately, Sikh Heritage Month's activities will not take place in schools this month due to the ongoing government-mandated closure of publicly funded schools, including all Peel schools and work sites in respect to COVID-19. Having said that, we are proud to share the board's Sikh Heritage Month poster, which showcased students' artwork created by Peel students. It can be found on our board website and on social media channels. During Sikh Heritage Month, we encourage staff, students, family, and our communities to spend some time learning about the rich heritage, history, culture, and contributions of Sikh Canadians and Sikh communities throughout the world. Thank you. And finally, 6.3, we'd like to recognize on April 22nd, the Administrative Professional Day. So we'll take these all as grouped together, and I'll start off, Trustee Crocker, would you put this on the floor?
I will.
And just moving up the list, Trustee McDonald, would you second this?
I will.
Thank you. So we'll start the voting process. Trustee Davies, do you approve? Trustee Davies, you're still muted? I'll unmute you. Trustee Davies?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Benjamin?
Yes, I do.
Thank you. Trustee Lawton?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Cameron? Oops, you're muted, sorry. Trustee Cameron?
Yes, I do.
Trustee Crocker?
Agreed.
Okay. Trustee Nair, student, non-binding vote?
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Trustee Aurora?
Yes, thank you.
Yep, Trustee Aurora is a student non-binding vote. And Trustee McDonald, Kay McDonald.
Yes, I approve it. I just wanted to speak to the Sikh Heritage Month and thank Trustee DeCroob for the motion. And I will miss going around to my schools and just celebrating the rich Sikh heritage and culture. As well as I want to say a heartfelt thank you to the administrators, especially in the unprecedented times that we're in with COVID. You know, as I drive around and just see, you know, even like the curbside pickup, how they are going above and beyond. And I thank you. And I just want to wish them all the best on April 22nd. I won't forget that day is a very special day. That's my dad's birthday. So thanks again to our administrators.
Okay, thank you, Trustee McDonald. Trustee Green? Yes, and Trustee McDonald, so approved. Moving forward, on to delegation section. So, Peel District School Board virtual meetings using this COVID-19 shutdown. Due to the government statement of emergency declaration to help contain the spread of the novel coronavirus, for everyone's safety, all public meetings of the school board will be held virtually and live streamed online until future notice. Members of the public can continue to participate in public meetings by watching the live stream and may make delegation presentations or ask public questions electronically. This process applies to the following meetings: regular board meeting, instructional program curriculum committee meetings, physical planning and building committee meeting, and special education advisory committee. The electronic delegation requests. Individuals or groups requesting to make a delegation to the board are required to submit the completed requested delegation form and electronic delegation file to the director's office via email donna.baptiste@peelschooolboard.com. This is all found on the website. At least 5 business days before the date of the meeting in order for the request to be considered. The director's office will contact you to confirm your delegation and the length of time your delegation, which is typical up to 10 minutes maximum. As per board bylaws, if there's more than one delegation on the same topic, these delegations will reduce to 5 minutes each. Electronic delegation must be completed through one of the methods listed below. Video and audio files must be provided to the board through a downloadable link using online file transfer processes such as Dropbox, Google Drive, Microsoft OneDrive, and WeTransfer. This is all outlined on our website. Video that will be shown during the live stream has to be in MOV and MP4 format. Audio files that will play during the live stream must be in MP3 format. PowerPoint presentation should be in the PowerPoint PPT, PPTX format, or text files that you want read out during the virtual meeting can be emailed to us, or it could be an attachment of a doc, Word doc file, docx, or PDF format. Please review the Peel bylaws G1 through G9 prior to submitting a request to delegate. These bylaws provide an overview of the delegation process. So that being said, our item 7.1 has been removed from the delegation process. So we're going to be moving on to delegation 7.2 by Kola Yuliamati regarding the criminalization and safety of Black parents at board meetings. We'll be playing that audio file.
Ministry of Education, PDSB Review Final Report. Delegation on behalf of Black African Communities, 15th of April, 2020. The report speaks for itself regarding the differential treatment our children have endured through the years as they seek educational services in the Peel District School Board. Our collective response could not be better communicated than by Royce and James in his op-ed piece in the Toronto Star. It is necessary to state that the courts have consistently ruled that school boards must provide environments free from discrimination to students. Therefore, it is worthy of note that this is a community delegation, representative of more than 15,000 Black African students, those before them and those yet to enroll at PDSB, community and parents organizations, as we respond to page 19 of the review report. It is unfortunate that these educators, leaders, and trustees could not hear or are unable to discern the deleterious, systematic discrimination that accentuates the ongoing community narratives of prejudice and harm. We urge the PDSB leaders and community to come together to start the hard work of telling and hearing the personal truths about the machinations and magnitude of racism within the PDSB. And only after confronting these truths, acknowledging the myths and accepting responsibility, can the board undertake the remedial work of seeking reconciliation and setting metrics to assess progress and success in community relations. It has to be said, we have been telling the board about this harm for years, and because we are Black African, we were marginalized and muted. Now the Ministry of Education, including the Minister Honorable Lecce, is telling you the same thing. So, with the powerful paragraph above and the one below, we need to move to action. It is our hope that with this report, as concrete documentation of anti-Black racism in the board, and affirmation of the voices of Black students, parents, staff, and community members, Black communities can begin to collaborate positively with the PDSB and push forward efforts to have the recommendations we offer to uproot systematic racism and inequities are acted upon. Page 19. As it is important that the ministry notes that recommendations and truth-telling is necessary for uprooting the systemic racism it has been named, we propose that negotiations commence on how that truth-telling can be explored with the community. We request that trustees Kathy McDonald, John Marchand, Balbir Sohi, and Noka Dakgroup be the trustee representatives as those negotiations commence. Our request is to put forward to you under the authority of the following. 1. The final review report itself. 2. The Guide to Good Governance. 3. The Education Act S169, bracket 1. 4. The Ontario Human Rights Code S14. Our communities are aware that an apology has been requested and that the board may offer one, yet it is imperative to note that such an apology would ring hollow, vacuous, and self-serving if a discussion about how to undo the harm done is not undertaken. Additionally, we need to stress that our communities have sent 2 communiques to the board from 24 organizations in total, including community and parent ones, which went out on March 27th and April 1st, 2020, respectively. The board has yet to respond. If you are apologizing, the least the board can do is to finally show respect to its victims of systemic racism. Therefore, our demands are as follows. That a response to this delegation be sent to me in writing and therein to outline the following. That the community letters be responded to within the next 7 working days. That trustee Kathy McDonald respond to our request positively regarding her leading a trustee group to commence discussions with the communities. Please note that the Guide to Good Governance for Trustees names parents as the number 1 of stakeholders and constituents, as trustees undertake their role as managing a $2 billion organization that needs to uproot anti-Black racism. And that trustee Kathy McDonald respond on behalf of the board within the next 10 working days. Should there be any objection to this request from the board, we shall deem this as a resistance to include us. It is also important to us that the board do away with the common act of choosing only the Black voices it prefers, those that tell it what it wants to hear. That the board demonstrate very clearly to the Black African communities its commitment to learning about and actively undoing the established systemic racism cataloged in the PDSB review report from the Ministry of Education. I hope that the Board of Trustees has the facility to take this on board as it did with receiving the report, and our communities are ready to re-engage as equal partners, no less. We will remain haunted by contents of page 7 of the report, which states, they seem paralyzed by inaction to effect meaningful change in the lives of Black students. There appeared to be a consistent failure to recognize that Black children are their children too. Astonishingly, there has been a historical collective absence of a call to action to stop the harmful effects of anti-Black racism and to take responsibility for the poor outcomes of too many of our Black children. Therefore, we cannot be quiet and must hold you accountable for the future of every Black African child walking through your doors after COVID-19 is defeated. As our children have always been in isolation, many times quarantined as the board practice its color-coded and equity distancing education. We need our children to be free to breathe, to be free of excessive punishment sponsored by a $9 million surveillance program, and free of the school to prison pipeline. As Royce and James put it, it is a matter of life and death. Thank you.
Thank you. Since there's no opportunity to have questions of clarification, we'll move on to item 8 in the agenda, old business, which we don't have any. So we'll move on to item 9.1, the notice of motion, Trustee McDonald, regarding the recognition of the International Decade of Peoples of African Descent. So Trustee McDonald, the motion is yours. Do you have a seconder?
Well, my seconder is not at the meeting, so I'd like to ask anyone if they'd like to volunteer to second my motion, please.
I'll second it, Chair.
Who was that? Was that Robert Crocker?
Yes.
Yep, thank you. So Trustee Crocker seconded. Okay, Trustee McDonald, you have 5 minutes to introduce your motion.
Thank you. I'll just read it again. Be it resolved that the Peel District School Board formally recognize the United Nations Declaration contained in Resolution 68-237, adopted on December the 3rd, 2013, that 2015 to 2024 be declared the International Decade of Peoples of African Descent, beginning September 2020 until the end of the year 2024. So basically, I'm just going to read some of the highlights of the declaration. So I looked at the resolution that was adopted, and under development in the aspect of education, it refers to states, but I'd like to refer to the school board. Should take all necessary measures to give effect to the right of people of African descent, particularly children and young children. It goes on to talk about ensuring that the quality education is accessible and available in all areas where communities of African descent live, particularly in rural and marginalized communities. To take measures to ensure that public and private education systems, we are just focusing on the public, do not discriminate against or exclude children of African descent, and that they are protected from direct and indirect discrimination, negative stereotyping, stigmatization, and violence from peers or teachers. To this end, training and sensitization should be provided to teachers, and measures should be taken to increase the number of teachers of African descent working in educational institutions. On another section, when they talk about education on equality and awareness, it talks about promoting greater knowledge and recognition of respect for the culture, history, and heritage of people of African descent, including through research and education. It talks about promoting the positive role that political leaders and political parties. It talks about xenophobia and related intolerance. Inter alia, publicly recognizing and respecting the culture, history, and heritage of people of African descent. Raise awareness through information and education measures with a view to restoring the dignity of people of African descent, and consider making available support for such activities, support education and training initiatives, ensure that textbooks and other educational materials reflect historical facts accurately, and it goes on. But through this motion, it is my hope that the following will occur as we recognize the UN International Decades of People of African Descent. Looking at the directives of the UN and put it into a context for the Peel District students and their families. Move beyond the ministry directives. Use these directives as the floor, not the ceiling, so we can build upon them. Look at the SRO programs and justice meted out in our schools. Examine how our own hyper-surveillance of Black students affect Black students. Look at the 80%, the other, for suspensions of Black students. Examine our colonial past and its effect, the mental health of Black children. We hopefully all understand that racism leads to physical and mental health issues. I hope the board will meaningfully integrate the Black lived experience into the board's curriculum, and not only their struggles, but their triumphs and major contribution to Canada and the world be recognized. Hopefully by 2024, we will truly be able to authentically celebrate people of African descent in a respectful, meaningful way. If done properly, we as a board will be taking great steps towards educating not only Black people, but people of the region of Peel, which will ultimately shatter a lot of myths and negative stereotypes. Remember, education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. This is a quote from a great man that I sat beside in 1990 in Union United Church in Montreal, Nelson Mandela. Our conversation permanently changed who I am. Imagine what our board can do if this motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other trustee would like to talk to this motion?
I will, Chair.
Okay, Trustee Crocker.
So it's just an observation, Chair, that in January of 2018, the Government of Canada did exactly the same thing that Trustee McDonald is asking us to do. I have a very brief quote from the Prime Minister at the time, Mr. Trudeau, who said that today is an important day for Canada. Our commitment to the International Decade will help us better address the very real and unique challenges that Black Canadians face and bring us closer to a more just and inclusive country.
Thank you, Trustee Crocker. Anyone else would like to talk to this motion? Trustee Green? Just wait. You have to wait till. Mark.
Thank you, Chair. I want to basically really thank Trustee McDonald for bringing this forward. I think this is something that, as a board, we need to do and need to recognize. I think this passing this motion will send a strong message to our community, how we embrace people of African descent and people of color, and that we have a space where we can feel that we are a part of, feel comfortable, liberated, to speak freely, and to know that our children and our future generation can come alongside and say, yes, we have people that believe in who we are, and therefore allow us to stand tall on their shoulders. So I will support the motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Green. Any other trustees like to talk to this motion? Seeing none, Trustee McDonald, would you like to close debate on your motion?
Thank you, Chair. No, I'm asking my colleagues to please support this motion, as it's a win-win for all students, teachers, and parents, as well as the community of the Peel region. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee McDonald. So we'll start through the process. We have a seconder and mover, so we're just going into vote. So start off with Trustee Davies. Do you support the motion?
In favor, yes.
Trustee Benjamin, do you support the motion?
Yes, I totally support the motion.
Thank you. Trustee Lawton, do you support the motion?
I do support the motion.
Thank you. Trustee Cameron?
Yes, I am in favor of the motion.
Thank you. Trustee Crocker?
I'm in favor.
Thank you. Student Trustee Nar, non-binding vote?
Yes, I'm in favor.
Thank you. Trustee Aurora, Student trustee, non-binding vote.
Completely in favor. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Trustee McDonald? Kay McDonald?
Yes, in favor.
Yep. Trustee Green? He's in favor. And Trustee McDonald in favor. So the motion passes unanimously. I just would like to echo the comments of Trustee McDonald, Crocker, and Green that this is an important motion to show our support. Moving on to item 9.2. That's an oral report. It's going to be a report from myself and from the Director, Joshua. On May 13th, 2020, the Ministry of Education released its report on the Peel District School Board's review, which included 27 directives and timeline for each. That day, Director Joshua and I issued a joint statement which is posted on the board's website. Tonight, the Director of Education will present the Board of Trustees with an action plan that outlined tasks, responsibilities, and progress on each of the ministry's directives. The ministry consultants surfaced serious and deeply concerning accounts of traumatic experiences, especially for members of the Peel's Black community and other racialized and marginalized communities. As the elected chair, I take responsibility for what happened and for what will happen next. On behalf of the board, I want to apologize again for the trauma and hurt staff, students, families, and community members have experienced. We have much to do to continue the remedial work necessary to seek reconciliation so that we can eliminate anti-Black racism, uproot systemic discrimination, and regain trust to improve outcomes from students and staffs. To help ensure expectations for all directives are met, the Board of Trustees and senior leadership will develop an accountability framework to drive and deliver positive change. The board will seek input on the framework for community members and assure alignment with the ministry education's directives. In addition to this work, accountability measures and responsibilities will be included in the board's new annual equity accountability report card, Directive 9. The board's first progress report is due to the Minister of Education by June 1st, 2020. At a supplementary meeting of the board on March 24th, 2020, the Board of Trustees approved a number of recommendations from the directives that were required action by March 26, 2020. Since then, progress has been made on a number of directives, including an independent mediator has been trained to help the board identify, address, and resolve dysfunction between and among the board members and between members of the board and the director and associate directors, Directive 1. The mediator will submit an interim report by May 14th and a final report by June 20th to the Minister of Education as directed. Trustees have agreed to take part in this mediation. The board has retained the service of an external parliamentarian and governance expert to establish procedures and practice for effective, respectful, and transparent governance, Directive 5. The parliamentarian will remain until the Ministry of Education approves a progress report from them confirming that the aforementioned practices and procedures are in place. The board will also create a permanent position to carry out the responsibility of the parliamentarian and to provide professional governance advisory services and to support our board. The board provided direction to all hiring managers to preserve all documentation related to hiring, promotion, and temporary appointments moving forward. The direction was sent on March 25th, 2020. Directive 25 also calls for the establishment of a centralized applicant tracking and file management system as part of the development of the employment systems review that includes hiring, promotions, and acting appointments. By December 31st, 2020, the board will submit a progress report on implementation of the tracking and file management system. By August 31st, 2021, the board will submit confirmation to the Ministry of Education that a tracking system is in place. In light of the harm to the community, particularly the Black community, the Board of Trustees will issue a responsive and respectful apology shortly. We are taking this report and its directives very seriously. We want everyone in our community to be assured that we're working diligently to improve board governance and leadership practices. We will do everything we can in following the Ministry of Education directives to safeguard the success and well-being of students and staff. I'd now like to turn it over to the Director, Joshua, to present the plan that will enable us to track our progress of the Ministry's directives.
Thank you, and through you, Chair McDonald, thank you for your comments and outlining some of the specifics with regard to the directives. As we work to support the Peel Board community during the COVID-19 pandemic, I want to assure everyone that the Peel Board's commitment to equity and inclusion is not on pause. We are being intentional about inclusion, and with care and compassion, we are doing our best to support every learner and every staff member. That includes work we are currently engaged in that flows from the Ministry of Education's directives. Our work on the directives has started and is ongoing. There are directives that we must act on immediately and on our own, and there are others that must and will include consultation with staff, students, families, committees, and community. Given the pandemic-related challenges that prevent us from gathering face-to-face at this time, we are exploring virtual ways to involve stakeholders in decision-making and our actions moving forward. We remain committed to consulting and to working with the Black community and other communities in the days, weeks, and months ahead. We have developed, and we will be posting this publicly on our website as early as tomorrow. We've outlined the 27 directives that have come from the ministry, and they are outlined as follows. There are 8 directives specifically speaking to governance and leadership. There are an additional 4 directives speaking specifically to equity and human rights, 10 that are related to anti-Black racism and specific steps that we need to take to address disproportionality on a number of fronts. And there are an additional 5 specifically addressing human resources and our organizational alignment. That in total brings us to 27 clear directives. What we've done in our action plan is that we've outlined the specific language in the directive, the timelines around which various steps need to be addressed, which will hold us accountable, and then actions that are specifically required under each of these directives, the responsibility at the senior team and trustee level, and the status of these particular steps under each directive as we go through this. And we will continue to update on those actionable items as we move along this journey. And I want to emphasize again that we do not wish to do this in isolation. Consultation and support and certainly the insights of our community on various levels with all stakeholders is going to be key in our movement forward. As actions are undertaken, as I mentioned, updates will be shared with the community and posted on the board's website. I want to thank the chair and thank you all for the opportunity to introduce the action plan, and I look forward to having this posted so that you can see specifically what we're going to engage in the next number of weeks, months, and on the road ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Joshua. Does any trustee want to comment on the oral report?
I would.
Okay, Trustee McDonald.
Thanks. I was hoping to actually hear what exactly the steps were, but is it my, am I correct in saying that I won't find this out until tomorrow when it's posted on the website?
Through to the director.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. What you'll see, Trustee McDonald, is you'll see specifically we've taken all of the language of the directives in the report that came from the board. We've organized it so it's very clear, and and concise. So you won't see anything different from what you've seen in the report, but we have organized it, and it will, yes, be available on our website tomorrow so that you can see where we are so far. There are some specific steps that have already been undertaken, some that have been completed as they were due by the end of March, and some that are pending as we move forward. And this will include specific engagements with our community.
And I'll just add to that, Director Joshua, that this document will be the central location of where you can go to every directive, and then when any reports or plans are developed for any directive, that is where they'll be able to link into and then follow the progress of that as they proceed and get developed over the years. And I'll pass that on to Director Joshua to add further comment.
Right, just and happy to share this with trustees. I'll send it to you electronically this evening so that you have it in advance of it being posted.
Thank you. Any other questions, Trustee K. McDonald?
Yes, thank you. So I would appreciate that because I know it was brought to my attention on April 6th that an email was sent out. So I was a little disappointed that if on April 6th they knew that they were going to post an action plan, that we didn't get it beforehand. So I could ask questions around the action plan. Whilst I understand it is an operational issue, it would be nice to be able to preview the plan. But that being said, I was just wondering who was actually consulted with this action plan. So did the Director of Education consult with superintendents? Did you consult with Black stakeholders, with Black community members? Were Black parents consulted? Were students and Black students consulted? Was PACE consulted, our staff resource group, and was the anti-Black racism group consulted? Thank you.
Through Director Joshua, I would like to.
So through you, Chair, I just want to clarify that this is a document that outlines clearly the directives. The actual steps and actions that will take place will clearly involve, as Trustee McDonald has outlined, consultation and outreach to the various stakeholders, including PACE, our staff, students, community members, and community organizations in the Black community will all be involved in giving us the insights and direction around the specific actions. The plan that you will see is it's a document that takes the language of the ministry directives and puts it in a palatable form so that people can see that we are addressing the various aspects. But we will not take any next steps without involving our community. They need to be at the table, and their voice is very, very important in what we're going to do moving forward.
Yeah, can I just add a little word of clarification? So this is not an action plan. It has no action in it. All it is really a table of all the directives with the wording from the directives and the status of it. And from that, later the director and staff will develop action plans which will be brought to the Board of Trustees to review and involve all the things that have been mentioned. Is that good clarification?
Yeah, there are, just to clarify, there are certainly actionable steps in this, but as Chair McDonald has outlined, the work beyond this will be action plans, working plans with steps, accountability measures, check-ins, etc. These are all the things that need to be put in place as we move forward, and here is where we definitely need to acknowledge and certainly appreciate the voices of our Black community at the table to ensure that we are addressing things in accordance with the needs and understanding that if we're going to talk about impact on our community, we need to hear from our community as to what that impact should be.
Yeah, thank you, Director Joshua. And again, the action items that are listed in this chart are the directive actions only. Okay, I hope that clarifies things for you, Trustee McDowell.
Yes, it does, because I thought it was an action plan, because based on a memo that went out to the system, to the staff, that was forwarded to me, it says an action plan that addresses all 27 directives. So I was a bit taken aback how we could have developed this action plan with the 27 directives will be presented at the regular meeting. So that clarification is very important, because I was concerned that because none of the people in the groups that I mentioned that I have spoken to had been consulted. So I was just wondering how an action plan with all 27 directives could have been developed. So thank you for that clarification.
You're welcome.
So my second question is, in the structure, like in the planning, it's my understanding that based on the directives, that an equity portfolio was going to be developed, and it was going to, the climate and HR was going to be under that equity superintendent. But I understand that there, and I just wanted clarity regarding this issue, because I understand that a central position is being created, and which will see the current coordinator of climate for learning and working move into a newly created role, not under the equity department, but is a role called the Safe and Accepting School Coordinator. So I'm just wondering why would you be housing like a Safe and Accepting School Coordinator, if that is in fact so, responsible for bullying, progressive discipline, and restorative practices, whereas we know that a lot of issues we have, for example, with restorative practices and progressive discipline are around Black students, kids in poverty and other marginalized groups, Indigenous students also, and the report revealed Hispanic students are overrepresented. So why would we not include this role, the Safe and Accepting School Coordinator, under the Equity Department? I just wanted some clarity on this new role that is being created.
So through you, Chair, appreciate the questions. One of the key steps, and it's clearly outlined in the directives, is that we are going to be engaging a consultant, an external expert to come in and review our current structures and recognition of the language that is in the directives and how we need to move forward. Very much appreciating that we need to look at how some of our approaches are in place now and how we need to address things through an answer-your-question lens and really be mindful of who are our most vulnerable, are marginalized, and as Trustee McDonald has stated, that we can't keep doing things in the way that we're doing them. So we're going to rely on that expertise, that view, and again, the partnership with the voices of our stakeholders to help inform us before we finalize any structure. So we aren't going to immediately move into these. We have timelines that are organized so that some steps need to be taken in place first, like the hiring of the consultant, and also the ensuring that we have the superintendent of equity position in place, so that the other things can be built when we've ensured that we have people in place to help us move in that direction.
Okay, thank you. And given the fact that Black and Indigenous students are disproportionately and negatively affected by our discipline practices, will there be any consideration to persons hired for the new role from communities or individuals that have training and a thorough understanding of anti-Black racism and truth and reconciliation, and preferably somebody with a lived experience? So I like wondering, how is a decision to staff like superintendents of equity, like a Safe and Accepting School Coordinator, somebody overseeing progressive discipline? So what qualifications, or have you reached that far in terms of what we're looking for in people's credentials?
So through you, Chair, thank you for that language. These are very much the types of things that we include in our job descriptions and what we put out in terms of a job posting. Premature right now, as we have not actually gotten to that stage, but very mindful of the comments of the trustee and appreciate those are very much the types of things in terms of a deep understanding and lived experience are certainly things that we would include in a posting.
Okay, thank you. And my final question is that the ministry review states that the data is clear and that the Peel District School Board is suspending Black secondary school students at a ratio of 2.2. That is, Black students are only 10.2% of the secondary school population, but about 22.5% of students receiving the suspensions. Approximately 78% of the PDSB secondary school suspensions did not fit the parameters of the Ministry of Education's definition for other incident codes between 2013 and 2019. It goes on to say that approximately 40% of PDSB suspensions of elementary students did not fit within the parameters of the Ministry of Education's definition for other incident codes between 30 and 2019. And this is a worrying trend, end quote. So my question is, what steps are being taken to hold staff accountable to ensure that our discipline processes are not racist and that Black, Indigenous, and Hispanic children are not unfairly or hyper-disciplined and hyper-surveilled?
Okay, I'll pass that over to Director Joshua.
Through you, Chair. Thank you again, Trustee. These are very much the parts of the work plan and action plans. These are things you're mentioning are specifically speaking to directives. We're absolutely responsible for looking at our current data situation and taking the actionable steps to eliminate that level of disproportionality as you've described. It would be premature for me to outline the actual action plan when we have not yet met with our community to develop that plan, but these are definitely the pieces that are part of each of those directives. You'll see this stated in the document that we'll be posting.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else want to make comments or questions of this oral report? So, Trustee Green, do I have you put it on the floor? Trustee McDonald, can you second it?
I will.
Thank you. So we'll go through the voting process. Trustee Davies.
In favor.
Okay. Trustee Benjamin.
Yes, in favor.
Trustee Lawton.
In favor.
Great. Trustee Cameron.
In favor.
Thank you. Trustee Crocker. Thank you. Trustee Nar, student trustee, non-binding.
Yes, in favor.
Thank you. Trustee, I think Aurora is the next. Yep. Trustee Aurora is student trustee, non-binding vote.
In favor, Chair.
Thank you. And Trustee K. McDonald?
In favor.
Thank you. Trustee Green, your in favor. Trustee McDonald, that's unanimous, it passes. So we move on to item 10. Item 10 has been added to our agenda. It's called Peel Board's Response to COVID-19 Pandemic Closures, Community of Care Plan. So I'd like to pass it over to Director Joshua, who'll outline that. Thank you.
Thank you, and through you, Chair McDonald. If you'll indulge me, I just want to spend a little bit of time and highlight a number of the things that we've been doing as a team and with a multitude of people across our board in very many roles who have gone, quite frankly, above and beyond what is expected to ensure that all of our students are supported in this new way of learning. We've managed, through the support of many, to put a new approach to distance learning in place in 2 weeks. And quite frankly, as a number of my colleagues have said, we've been reinventing the approach to teaching and learning in a world that we're not always comfortable with and familiar with, but it's been exciting to see how people have embraced the whole concept of empowering modern learners. And as I've learned from many, people have recognized and discovered that they have more skills than they thought that they had. So it's been quite exciting. So if you will indulge me, I'll say a few things around the 7 or so areas that we've been focused on. So first of all, as you're all aware, distance learning and the approach to curriculum and instruction has been really very key in all of this. On the heels of the Ministry of Education providing supports at a provincial level, we had an opportunity to roll our sleeves up and through the support of many educators and support staff, we've developed a community of care approach to learning and support plan. And of course, our educators and staff in all of our schools, with the support of their administrators, have now gone through a solid week of introducing this learning and providing opportunities to our students. I want to say that while instruction, initial instruction certainly can be conducted online, we are not expecting our students to be tied to a device for their learning the entire time. Our goal is to encourage students to read, communicate, and engage in authentic learning experiences while continuing to be physically active and mentally well. Distance learning may look very different for each of our classes, but in all cases, our focus will be to provide authentic, deep learning for our students. And these learning opportunities are and need to continue to be flexible, engaging student voice and choice, and focusing on assessment that drives learning forward, keeping in mind that students' at-home learning environments are very unique. And above all else, we will always keep students' well-being at the top of the list. As has been mentioned a couple of times this evening, we are adhering to the provincial government's guidelines around the minimum expectations for students' work time, and so there are guidelines outlined for students from kindergarten through to grade 12 in terms of the number of hours of expected materials and coursework provided to them. As much as possible, our teachers will engage students in using tools that students are already familiar with. We are, not to get technical, but we are making good use of Brightspace and Google Classroom, and these are tools that have been in operation in many places. And I want to mention, of course, beyond grade 12 into our adult education programs as well. Video conferencing is something that we're currently reviewing at a central level, and we hope to be engaging staff and students in a safe and a way as we move forward, so more information to come there. With respect to assessment, evaluation, and reporting, we recognize that these are not normal times and that not all students are equitably well positioned to learn from home. Some have limited access to technology. Others may have less support from family members because their parents or guardians are essential workers, and others may be struggling in other areas. All of this to say that educators understand the extremely difficult circumstances in which many of our families find themselves, and we will assess and evaluate student learning with care and compassion. Our goal is to support every learner, not to penalize them for the circumstances that they may find themselves in. And I want to mention that this has been an evolving matter, and we've certainly been hearing from the ministry as they continue to support us in messaging week by week, day by day. And so we want to be very clear that all students will be treated, as I said, with care and compassion, and they'll be assessed and evaluated during this closure period, such that students' marks will reflect work completed up until March 13th, 2020, and we will only talk about improvement of students with what they demonstrate in achievement of expectations. In other words, if there's evidence of significant improvement in learning after April 6th. So again, to emphasize, students' marks will reflect work completed up till March 13th, and will look for improvements based on what is submitted beyond April 6th. Specifically, no student who was passing their Semester 2 course as of March 13th, 2020 will lose their credit, even if they aren't able to participate after April 6th. Our intention remains not to lower grades. For those students who are not passing as of March 13th, all efforts will be made by the subject-specific teacher to help the student receive the credit. And this includes providing as many opportunities as possible to engage students and have them demonstrate their learning. As always, parents and guardians of the students will be engaged, so they too are aware of the expectations and opportunities educators are affording their teens to be successful. So I hope that clarifies some of the perhaps misunderstanding or some messages that may have been out previous to this. I hope that we're at a place where we can make that clear moving forward. want to say a couple of things in terms of equity of access to technology. Very, very proud of the work of our administrators and school staff as they reached out to families to determine who is able to work and learn in an approach online with technology and who isn't. So we've managed to now determine what is needed, and we are going to be able to provide more than 20,000 devices to our students across the system. And we know that there are a number of students who don't have access to internet. So we also have the provision of approximately 2,000 internet accessible devices like Roger's sticks, the keys that will help them, and devices like iPads that are equipped also to have access to the internet. So that's a considerable amount of technology that will be available, and you should know how hard our staff is working. And I wouldn't be able to name all of the people that have been involved, but our staff in the Learning Technologies Department, there are many of them, and of course our school staff who have been involved in ensuring that this equipment is available. We have worked very closely with Peel Public Health on the access to this technology. We provided opportunities for, first of all, for educators to safely enter into schools to retrieve the equipment and resources that they need in order to allow for distance learning. And we have now engaged in providing opportunities through a protocol known as curbside pickup and a loaner device protocol aligned with Peel Public Health safety regulations to ensure that everyone is able to, in a careful, safe way, retrieve the devices that they need. And again, thank you to staff for organizing this. We've ensured that there is no face-to-face contact, and the rules around distance, that 2-meter distance, and ensuring that everyone is clear about rules, and that we do have caretaking staff in regularly cleaning high-touch surface areas to ensure that this pickup and distribution can happen in a safe way. So 20,000 devices, quite incredible, and quite an incredible amount of work overall. We are currently also looking as we move forward, and I will say that we're almost completed with our distribution of technology to our secondary students. We began with students who are in their grade 12 year, where graduation is critical, and we're moving towards completing the distribution in elementary and should be finished by next week. From there, we're looking at phase 2, recognizing that some of our learners really need to learn in different alternative ways, may not be able to access through technology. So we are investigating approaches to learning in other ways beyond just technology, the provision of paper copies, packages, things like that. And we're very grateful to supports from our busing companies and other delivery services, couriers, for those who aren't able to access easily, and appreciate the many volunteers who have taken it upon themselves to, in a safe way, also help to deliver the resources that are needed for our students and families. And we recognize that there are also staff who are requiring technology or access, so we're in the midst of also providing those resources where needed. We wanted to ensure that students had what they needed first, and then we'll engage in making sure that the staff who require things have what they need. In the area of special education, apologies, it's a bit of a report, but area of special education, a great deal of work from our special education department, and certainly Superintendent Moynihan will be working with our Special Education Advisory Committee for their insights as well. We are also ensuring that our students who require additional support, including our English language learners, have what they need. Our teachers will be honoring individual education plans and the approaches specifically to how to learn effectively with accommodations in an online and distance learning approach. Those will be things in place. We are looking at in-school review committee and identification, placement, and review committee approaches. Those details will be coming. And of course, the importance of special education amount technology, the SIA, if you will, technology and non-technology equipment are being collected in our schools, and we're looking at a distribution plan beginning this week and into next week. Some of it through a curbside pickup protocol that I mentioned in a safe way, but also recognizing that some of our students who are bused will need to have courier drop-off of this technology. So that is to continue, again, in a very, very safe way. We're also looking at the provision of video conferencing, because we know that for many of our students, but particularly our students with identified special needs, video conferencing can be a very effective way to support them moving forward. So that is to come, and we're looking at all the parameters around that. For our graduating students, as I mentioned, there's a concerted effort to ensure they have what they need to be supported to graduate. And we know for a number of them in their grade 12 year, it's important to ensure that marks are submitted on time so that they can go to our application centers for post-secondary, for colleges and universities. So we are looking now at, after some consultation in a number of places and some information that has come from our application centers, we're looking to ensure that marks are submitted on time around April the 27th, which will be very much in time for the deadline, so that our students are able to qualify for admission into programs. And of course, final report cards will come after that. As I think most people may know, but I'll mention it, the graduation requirement around completing 40 hours of community involvement has been suspended this year by the Ministry of Education. We're grateful that that's taking a pressure off our students because there's much that they need to do. But of course, we always encourage where students are able and where it's possible to have the opportunity to volunteer. Certainly, we're open to that, but it's not a requirement. You may also be aware of the number of supports that have come in the way of mental health and well-being, certainly a number that have been developed in-house through a document, a variety of resources for staff, families, and students in the way of mental health and community support. And we're very grateful for the support of our staff in terms of reinventing their approach to critical incident response, recognizing that a number of our students do need that individual specific ongoing attention. And we, just because we're in a virtual world, it doesn't mean that we shouldn't forget the importance of those that are most vulnerable. And we appreciate the work of our social workers and psychoeducational consultants and many others, our teaching assistants and other support staff who are going above and beyond to ensure that those connections are made for our students as we move forward. And of course, the support, we know that the mental health and well-being of our staff is also very, very important and key. And we've tried to message that as much as possible, but we appreciate the work of our well-being coordinators, looking at student needs, but also staff needs, and the connection to Homewood Health to seek resources, to have resources in place for our staff. Thank you to our Human Resources Department for consistently and continually connecting with our union and employee association leaders, having them at the table, listening to their concerns and needs throughout, having their voices and helping us navigate uncharted waters, quite frankly. It's been very, very much collaboration at its finest, at its best, and we know we're all going to be able to survive and succeed to the highest level of success when we've got this type of partnership and collaboration going on. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention the ongoing support of our communications department in all of the work they do to ensure that on multiple platforms we are providing information regularly to all of our stakeholders. Certainly our principals and vice principals, managers and supervisors are receiving what they need, and they're asking a lot of questions quite rightly, and we're doing our best to address those questions regularly. But the ongoing communication that we can provide to people in this time has been really very key, and we're learning as we go, and we certainly realize we can do more, and we continue to look at new ways and different ways to provide this level of support. In closing, and I know there's a lot there, I apologize, but I thought it was important to honor all of that work. I want to say here to our public and to our trustees that I'm proud, very proud to be part of a school board that values and recognizes the efforts of all staff, both on the education side and the business side of the organization. Whether you're working to maintain financial operations, prepare that SIA equipment, organize bus routes, distribute and deliver devices, support at the help desk, extend special education support, deliver instruction, or respond to thousands of questions on social media. You all play a critical role in supporting student success and well-being. It's impossible to list all of the roles of all the individuals, but I want you all to know that I continue to see and appreciate your contributions. And I want to thank the many trustees who have reached out to us with their support to give us that extra bit of encouragement to ensure that we stay on this path, because inspiring hope, confidence, and success always matters, but it matters particularly in these times, these challenging times. So I thank you for indulging me in providing that report.
Thank you, Director Joshua.
Very good. Yeah.
I want to, before I turn over to the trustees, I just want to thank everyone. This has never been done before. We've never been in a situation ever in our society that would even prepare us to allow us to even think about how to deliver this. And just at March break, we had to, and your staff, our great staff of Peel, had to jump in action. Our senior men started some great committee work, then worked it down through the entire organization to deliver something that's truly remarkable in such short order. And I cannot thank everyone, from the director down to everyone, from the stopper dropping off items, to our staff preparing the computers, to our teachers now doing the instructions, to the senior men developing these plans that never have been thought about, and working with technology themselves to do things in a virtual world. All that happening when around us we're dealing with a deadly virus outbreak where family members and potentially our parents and grandparents and people living with us can be really taken away from us by this virus. So I just cannot thank everyone and anyone in our Peel board, and I hope the public understands the great dedication and staff that we have. So I have Trustee Cameron who wants to say some words.
Thank you. Can you hear me, Chair?
Yes, we can, Trustee Cameron.
Okay, thank you. Through you, Chair McDonald, thank you very much, Director Joshua, for this report and very thorough update. You, your senior team, their school leaders, and all of the frontline school staff have done a remarkable job responding to the ministry's expectation that distance learning would be provided to all of our 155,000 plus students starting on Monday, April the 6th. Thank you to everyone involved for your amazing work as you continue to bring distance learning for all to fruition. As all of us know by now, one trustee's tweet that started with, quote, "At Peelschools wants to fail kids during this global crisis," end of quote. Through you, Chair McDonald, I want to challenge such an offensive statement that the Peel District School Board, quote, "wants to fail kids," end of quote. I know that our school staff are doing incredible work to support students, families, and staff through this difficult and uncertain time. My superintendent, Michael Logue, wrote to me last week unsolicited saying, quote, "I have been very proud of our school leaders and staff. As you say, these are different times and lots of trial and error, but so far so good. The focus has been on putting technology in the hands of staff and students while navigating the issues as they arise. By Tuesday, all of our students with SIA claims will have their devices. All staff will as well," end of quote. Chair, I believe it is offensive that anyone would intentionally impugn such a monumental effort by so many amazing and wonderful staff in this board. Will staff get an apology? Will they get a retraction? Last week, I also received this message from a school leader in the Peel board. They wrote about their disappointment in the negative message about all the efforts to help our students and staff. It reads like this: "It has made me sad to hear that there has been Twitter negativity toward our board and the way we are doing things in this very difficult time. I want to share some things from our community and our school. First, I want to thank our senior men and our directors for caring about us and for working endless hours to provide us with guidance and leadership in a time when we absolutely need it the most. Our virtual meetings and our emails, which can be overwhelming, are definitely needed to keep us informed and feeling safe and secure. In that light, I emailed my staff for a regular check-in. I asked them to share some of the things they've been doing. I was thrilled to hear some of the stories of how they and the kids are coping with our, quote, new normal. My teachers have taken to this distance learning with style and creativity. I hear stories of how each day kids send pictures and their work to the teacher. Teachers are calling kids, and the feedback from parents is that the kids look forward so much to those calls, one-on-one work at its finest. My VP and I have been into the school several times locating SIA computers and getting them labeled and ready for pickup. We called all the parents who were nothing but supportive and actually quite thrilled to be able to come and pick up the technology for their kids. I'm happy to say that all of our SIA is out and picked up in a safe way, adhering to all the safety guidelines. Next week, we will continue to meet the needs of the rest of our students so that they are connected. My support staff have been assisting teachers and having regular check-ins with our students at risk. Our social worker is also connected with these families. I'm so proud of the work we are doing. I'm proud of the leadership and proud to be part of this huge team that is going above and beyond in these very trying times. I have felt nothing but support and care from all of those we are connected with. I know it's easy to get bogged down by negativity, but I choose to stay positive knowing that all of us are doing the very best we can. End of quote. Through you, Chair McDonald, I offer my thank you and appreciation to our director, his office team, our senior team, our school principals, vice principals, our teachers, DECEs, ECEs, office managers, OM assistants, custodians, facility managers, IT staff, LTSS staff, stopper and transportation, SPECET staff, EAs, BTAs, TAs, all full-time and casual staff in this board. And at this point, Chair McDonald, on the heels of the director's report, I ask permission to be able to introduce a motion that speaks to our recognition of and support of this board's staff.
You have a motion arising from the director's report?
That's correct, sir.
Okay,
yes.
Then, according to our bylaws, you're allowed to make a motion. Can you read the motion, please?
Okay. Sir, just give me 1 second. I'd like to send this to trustees.
Okay.
So trustees, I have just sent it to our trustees DL. And if you have a chance to access it, I've also arranged to have it sent to all of the senior team. So hopefully they can follow along as well. If not, you'll be able to see it after, but hopefully you can certainly get some clarity from the way I say it. It goes like this. The motion is, whereas the Ministry of Education requires school boards to resume classes through distance learning, and whereas to meet the ministry's expectations, the Peel District School Board senior team administration organized into 7 leadership teams. 1, distance learning. 2, special education and ELL. 3, alternatives to online. 4, technology. 5, communications. 6, mental health. 7, union. And whereas each of the 7 teams was required to share their strategies, requirements, and expectations to move forward with each of the board school principals and vice principals. And whereas each of the board's school principals and vice principals were required to share these strategies, requirements, and expectations with all of their school staff, and whereas each school staff member was required to connect with each of their students to ensure a record of students and family needs. And whereas all of the leadership teams, school leaders, school staff, students and families are now in day 8 of implementation and delivery and receipt of equipment, internet access assurance, grade-specific lessons, worksheets, assessments, etc. And this preparation work will continue every day until all students, families, and school staff are equipped with the tools to offer opportunities for student success. Be it resolved that the Board of Trustees offer our sincere recognition and appreciation to all of our board staff for their committed and unprecedented effort to initiate distance learning opportunities and for their continuing efforts to address any outstanding needs. That's the motion, Chair.
Okay, and I've read it. So then what I'll like to do is, you need a seconder. Do you have a seconder for your motion?
I do.
Who's that?
Oh, it's me, Susan Benjamin.
Susan.
I wholeheartedly support this motion.
So you're the seconder, Trustee Benjamin?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so now that we have the motion on the floor, do you want to speak to the motion that you just put on the floor, Trustee Cameron?
Just very briefly, Chair, thank you. I just want to say thank you, and through you, Chair McDonald, this motion isn't a complicated one in my mind. It is an opportunity for...
Point of order.
Yes.
Shouldn't we vote on, I was just wondering, don't we need a 2/3 majority to put the motion on the floor?
I was told no, through Nicole Fernandez and our board reporter Loyola here, that we don't. So,
Okay, so if you have so just to be clear, if a motion comes out of a report
correct.
Or a delegation, you don't need a 2/3 majority?
Not a delegation, only a report.
Only a report.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the clarification. So Trustee Cameron, you can continue.
Okay, thank you. This is an opportunity for our board to do the right thing and collectively recognize the time, effort, and performance of every single staff member in the Peel District School Board for their incredible work to get our students, school staff, and schools up and running again virtually. There are so many examples of how teams of our board staff have worked tirelessly to access over 18,000 devices. I mean, I just heard that number tonight, and 1,700 internet sticks. And then they work together to get this equipment to the hands of students, their families, and their teachers. Trustees, this is a prideful moment for this board, and we have an opportunity here right now to tell this amazing group of staff in this board, our communities and beyond, just how grateful we are for their time and effort. I'd ask all trustees to consider supporting this motion at this time. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, does anyone else want to speak to this motion?
I'd like to speak to it, Chair.
Okay, Trustee Crocker.
Thank you, Chair. And I'm speaking in favor of the motion. I thank Trustee Cameron for bringing it forward, and I thank Director Joshua for what I found to be a very uplifting report. By the way, I do agree with Trustee Cameron's concern about the negativity which appeared last week. I'm aware, from talking to people in other boards, that they're on day 2 today, and here we are. Did I hear day 8 for us? So I think that's pretty good. The principals and the supervisory officers with whom we might otherwise be chatting, they're just so busy with the impact of the pandemic upon our schools. So trustees can hardly expect from them regular comprehensive reports of the sort that we're used to. Nonetheless, the stories come back to us. Chair, I'm very impressed with the flexibility of our teachers. I was talking to one kindergarten teacher, not in my ward, who was telling me about delivering technology and making sure that everybody had what they needed, and dealing with the fact that people didn't have Wi-Fi and so on. But she encountered a family where they had lots of computers and they had laptops and all the rest, but what they didn't have was markers for their kindergarten kid. I think the cursive writing in the new generation is slowly disappearing. So our employees have had to be very flexible around all that. And as a couple of people have said, I'll simply echo, no Peel Board employees training or the expectations given to them at the time of hiring could have prepared them for this epidemic, for this pandemic. But they stepped straight up, notwithstanding the sacrifices to their family lives and to their personal health. So I think it's important that trustees support in solidarity with one another the work of our staff, which is aimed solely at what's best for students and their families. Thank you once again, Director Joshua, to you and all your staff for your inspired leadership in these trying times. And thank you, Trustee Cameron, for the motion.
Trustee Lawton, I see that you would like to say something. I think you're muted, Trustee Lawton. Try that.
Through you, Chair.
Yes, we can.
Good, thank you. I too support this motion. I'd like to make my appreciation clear to all our education workers, most of whom have been named. I won't go over them again. The task they were presented with was monumental and unprecedented, and the work that has been done for every child shows the level of care and dedication with which each staff member does their job. As we've just heard, the community of care plan is extensive and well thought out. So much of the work that has and continues to be done is not visible to us all. Inequities exist in our education system, and I am proud of the work that is being done for every student. All this work has been done by staff who are doing their absolute best. Their children are to learn from home while they teach from home, while their partner works from home, while their toddler needs to be cared for. They have increased extended family worry and responsibility. The system technology is different, with some staff more comfortable than others, some students more comfortable than others, and work-life balance is a struggle. All our staff know how difficult and varied the needs of the students are now, and are doing the work to help our students succeed so that they may continue learning in the best way possible. Staff deserve our gratitude and our congratulations. And in case you missed it in the beginning, I support this motion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Lawton. Does anyone else would like to speak to this motion?
Yes, it's me.
Yes, Trustee Benjamin.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. COVID-19 has forced us to look at new ways to learn. And it's mind-boggling that in 2 weeks, our staff have come up with this program. Many parents were calling me from time to time to ask, when are we going to get all the information about, the program that's coming up and that the ministry has directed us to do. And I had a chat with our director one day, and he said, we are coming up with something. And after listening to you, Director, I am really amazed at the amount of work that has gone in and the number of people that have gotten together to put this program in place. Just before today's meeting, a principal emailed me saying that they have finished distributing the devices to their students and, emailed it to her school council, and okay, we need to go on with the next steps. COVID-19 has forced the EML policy, to go into a new direction. And I do not think that we ever imagined that this would have happened. It only shows how, when human beings are challenged, that we can rise up to the occasion. And I take my hats off to you, to all the members of the people, others of the Peel Board who have been involved in this, to come up with this amazing program. I also would like to, congratulate you on behalf of some of the parents who called me and said they're very happy. One parent had 3 boys in the school board, and she said she's very happy. Thank you, and I fully second this motion.
Thank you, Trustee Benjamin. Does anyone else want to speak to this motion?
Okay, so,
Trustee Green?
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I just listened to my colleagues speak, and I would remiss if I didn't echo some of the things that I personally seen on the ground. My family is actually very concerned for me because the way I've been out there on the ground since this COVID-19 started. I'm sitting on many task force with different seniors task force, youth task force, PLCS task force, regional appeal task force, and recently the parent engagement task force that I'm sitting on and see the great need and actually working directly on the ground in the front line, providing some of these tools and LT snack to our kids that are in need, working with the various different community group, and also able to connect with some of our staff and teachers and listening to their appreciation, their comments around able to deliver these devices into students' hand so that they can work. And just this afternoon, on my way coming here, I got a call from a parent in the community that I represent, and she would want me. She said, "I understand it's board meeting tonight. Could you please extend my appreciation to the many staff that are out there and making sure, because I'm a single parent and my daughter, did not have the means because COVID-19 has put us in a place where in that we had to downsize and many things, and we had to make a decision around internet. And now my daughter has the internet access where she can get her work done, where she can continue her education journey. And I personally made it a point of my duty, and I don't know if the director is maybe tired of me by now, because many of the task force table that I sit in, I needed to give them update on what we're doing. So I constantly call, what are we doing? When are we doing? What is out there? And he would have Associate Director Mark Harmer and Associate Director Gill or himself are getting back to me with those information, and I'm very impressed by the amount of work everyone and even the community, because we got community groups and various organizations are stepping up to the plate and are donating stuff to our board and to ensure that our students have the device that they need to continue their learning. So I want to go beyond just the Peel District School Board staff and echo my thanks and appreciation to those community, to even the big organizations such as Rogers, Bell, Microsoft, and Reboot, and the various different organizations that are really chipping in. The city of Brampton, who also stepped up to the plate and willing to offer different support and help to ensure that our kids got the tools that they need to continue their learning. So definitely I will support Trustee Cameron's motion, and I want to really, we need to send a message, because this, we had a meeting today at the Ontario School Board level, distant meeting, and one of the things that we emphasize and we spoke about today is the very fact that this is new. This is a new experiment for all school board across the province, and we also, I said, we need to talk about, once this is over, what things will look like for us. Will we look at learning in a different way? But that's something that we'll explore down the road. But again, thank you to each and everyone who have made it possible, and I know the delivery will continue next week to the elementary students. And I can't say enough how much I do appreciate it, because I'm personally seeing it firsthand right on the floor, because I'm out there, especially when I show up at those doors, delivering those healthy snacks and delivering basket of food to many of our families. Over the Easter weekend for me was a weekend that, I tell you something, the amount of kids that we were able to deliver and families we were able to deliver a basket to, and those are because people care, and they want to make sure that our children, because people are recognizing giving the kids the computers and the different technologies so they can continue their learning, but if they don't have food, right, there's going to be a problem. So thank you to the various different organizations, supermarket, and social agencies that are stepping up to the plate and supporting our children. Thank you for all that you do and continue to do. Together, we stand during COVID-19. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Green. I really appreciate your words, but what you do in your community and support is commendable. Thank you so much. Do I have anyone else who would like to speak to the motion?
Yes, I would.
Yes, Trustee K. McDonald.
So I'd like to say a big thank you to all our educational heroes and most importantly, to remind them to stay healthy and to keep safe. And I'd like to thank Trustee Cameron for this motion, because when I was first aware of this report at 5 p.m. when the notice of this new walk-on to the agenda popped into my inbox, I was on my way from delivering one of my second to last tech to a smiling, a beaming LJ, a kindergartner that was so excited to see me, well, actually more excited to see the technology, that she nearly ran me over and I had to jump out her way and say, social distancing. So her mom went to grab her, you know, and it was so wonderful just to see the impact and the difference that's being made. I've driven in my travels too, just driving around, seeing the different schools with the curbside delivery, you know, just even though they're out there too, and actually it was actually snowing this morning, when I saw some teachers still out, you know, they were practicing social distancing, but making sure that things were working well. And I was quite impressed with Trustee Cameron's heartfelt comments and this well thought out motion. I personally wish I had a little more time to really express and sort of bring to the forefront some of the amazing examples that our staff has been, just the stories that I've heard in my travels. But first, I just want to address an issue that as Trustee DeKroob, as a frontline worker in a hospital, was very concerned about the health and safety of staff. And she has always been very concerned. She is as somebody who actually had self-isolate at one point, she thought she had COVID, understands the importance of things like masks. So, you know, she has a heightened sense of responsibility to staff to ensure that they are safe. She shows up at her hospital every day, and each and every day her co-workers, doctors, nurses, and other healthcare heroes disappear. So, you know, I think that it's understandable that she has this heightened sense of the importance of protecting staff and keeping them from harm's way. And thank you for that. She's also very concerned and has always been concerned about marginalized kids. Her remarks about really the confusion about the messaging that was on our website. It was not a critique of the staff that are in the front lines making a different planning for students, especially she can appreciate, she actually was a teacher herself, just the newness for some staff just going and making videos and that whole new platform. But our staff, they were amazing and they jumped right in, and they may have been a bit intrepid, but you know, they are putting their lessons and connecting with their students. She was really concerned about the mixed messages to students and also their mental health, because that's a trigger for a lot of students, secondary school students, now to add to the uncertainty of COVID, worrying about their credits. And, you know, I guess she was really concerned about the different expectations from the Ministry of Education. She has also remarked how amazing.
Chair McDonald?
Yes?
Yes.
Chair McDonald, I'm sorry, I don't understand what this has to do with the motion.
Correct. Trustee K. McDonald, we're here to talk about the motion on recognizing
I'm
the
speaking
staff.
to the motion. What did Trustee Green's comments have to do about the motion? He spoke mainly about himself and his wonderful work that he did.
No.
So I'm not sure
spoke to
why
the
you are
motion.
now.
No, I'm sorry. You could have
I am
objected
speaking
at
to
that
the
point in
motion.
time. You could have objected that time. So please keep your words focused on the motion. That's Trustee Cameron has.
It is focused on the motion. The staff, because this motion also came out of a comment that based on a trustee's objections to a tweet.
No, the motion isn't. That was his comments before the motion. So please, we're now talking about the motion.
the staff has remarked how amazing our 3 associate directors have been. The memos and the instruction given out, sent out by our associate directors have been very detailed and informative, and I'd like to thank them for that. It always signs off with Associate Director Graywall, Harmon, and Gill, and I'd like to personally thank you them for the memos because the staff has appreciated your leadership in this. I'd like to thank our amazing, actually our partners too that have helped our staff, you know, through this difficult time, our MPs or MPPs, our mayors, especially my mayor, Patrick Brown, for Councillor Singh, Councillor Williams, and Councillor Bowman, and actually all the councillors, because everybody has pitched in to help any which way, and ensuring that our staff and students have the resources that they need. And in closing, and while reiterating my support for this motion, I would just like to again end by asking all our staff, regardless of what your title says you are, to please make sure you stay safe. And one day, this too will pass. And I truly want to say thank you for all you do each and every day to inspire success, confidence, and hope in all students. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee McDonald, and yes, let's everyone stay safe. Do I have any other trustees who would like to make a comment? Seeing none, I get Trustee Cameron, you get to close debate on the motion. So you have the floor.
Thank you. I think with a monumental effort like this board has just experienced, it starts with the leadership. And I'm going to thank Director Joshua for leading this Herculean effort in many ways, as I would see it. I also think that I think of a mom who called me today because she called me yesterday as well. And she is a single mom with 2 children and not many resources. And she asked yesterday, she said, but my children don't have any devices and I'm worried that they might be slipping behind. The first person I called after, and those calls are immediate responses. First of all, I'm home all day and just happened to miss her call, but as soon as I got it, I called her back and she told me her situation. I promised her that I'd get right back to her as soon as I could get an answer from my superintendent. I called Superintendent Logue, and 20 minutes later, he called the principal, who called the mom back before I got back to her. And the message was that she was scheduled for today's delivery of 2 Chromebooks for her children. Mom left me a message today to say thank you for acting on that so quickly, when really the quick acting on my part was just getting to the right person. So I know it's always, if I have a question, to go directly to my superintendent or directly to the director and have a one-on-one conversation about how we're going to help our families. So thank you, and through you, Chair McDonald, thank you to my trustee colleagues for the discussion and the overwhelming support. Together, we're about to tell our staff just how much we appreciate them and their help during this pandemic time. Thank you, Chair McDonald. I'm ready to offer my vote of support for this motion too. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll start the voting process. Trustee Davies.
Very proud to support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Benjamin.
Totally in favor.
Trustee Lawton.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Trustee Cameron, I'll ask you again.
So, super totally in favor, yes.
Yes, okay, thank you. Trustee Crocker.
Yes, indeed.
Great. Student Trustee Nar, non-binding vote.
Yes, I full-heartedly agree.
Thank you. Thank you. Trustee Aurora, Student Trustee, non-binding vote.
Yes, I absolutely support this motion, Chair.
Thank you. Trustee, there it is, Trustee K. McDonald.
Yes, I would support this motion.
Thank you. Trustee Green? Supported. Trustee McDonald, or B. McDonald, it's unanimous. Thank you very much, trustees, and we'll thank you, staff. We really appreciate you, especially in these very difficult times when you've got thoughts of your family on your minds as well. We'll move now on to item 11, which are items for receipt. We're going to take them all as one group, but we'll allow people to talk to them individually. So I'll start down the list. Trustee Will Davies, would you put this on the floor?
Yes, I will.
Trustee Benjamin, would you second this?
Yes.
Okay, do I have anyone who would want to make a comment or question on any of these items?
Yes, Chair, could I speak to items 11.9 and 11.12?
Absolutely, please proceed.
Thank you so much, and through you, Chair, I would like to thank Superintendent DeMare and Associate Director Harmon for taking the time to respond to my questions. I'm very pleased to know that substance abusing students have a lot of support, not only in the community, but also within our schools to help them rehabilitate, and that our board is currently developing training programs for school administrators on vaping awareness, prevention, and addictions. I believe that is super important, and it's great to hear that our board is taking those steps. And in regards to students in the LGBTQ plus community, after learning about the initiatives that our staffs and students in our schools take to foster these inclusive environments and really celebrate the identities of the 2SL LGBTQ plus communities, I've been very assured. And so I think it's the little things like having gender neutral washrooms that really go a long way in creating safe environments for students to be able to express them and not have to hide their identity. I do understand, however, that this is just the beginning and we have a lot more work to do around equity and inclusion in education, but it's great to see that our board has taken the initiative to really foster inclusive environments. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Does any other trustee want to make a comment about any of the items for receipt?
I do.
Okay, Trustee McDonald, K. McDonald.
Yes, I'd like to make comments on section 11.7, point 8, point 10, and point 11. So I'd like to thank Director Joshua, Associate Director Mark Harmon, Superintendent of Human Resources Jamie Robertson. I'd like to thank our Manager of Workplace Equity Rohan Thompson for answering the questions. Now I just had a question regarding 11.7. So with the question, and I'm reading one to the third paragraph, when it says, when inappropriate behaviors occur, disciplinary measures should be applied within a framework that shifts the focus from one that is solely punitive to one that is both corrective and supportive. So I was just wondering, because I didn't get the sense that my question was answered, because I wanted to know if we have accountability measures, but it says, I know what you stated, that what should happen, but I am more interested in what happens when the progressive discipline approach process is not followed. So is there currently any mechanism to track or to hold accountable when excessive discipline is meted out to students? Also, if we look at, let's say you have an individual or individuals that are, when you look at how they discipline, there appears to be a problem. So I'm just wondering if you have any sort of accountability measures there. I didn't get that sense from the answer.
So you got to press your button, and Mark, okay, maybe I'll put it on.
So through you, Chair, just want to clarify if I'm hearing this correctly from Trustee McDonald. I believe Trustee McDonald was speaking to what are the measures if staff are excessive in their discipline measures towards students.
I could read the question. It says, what accountability measures are instituted by the board to deter, if not prevent, administrators from circumventing a progressive discipline approach?
Okay, thank you for that clarification. I'm sorry, I'm not sure if he's on. Perhaps I'll just ask Superintendent Robertson, just from a human resources perspective, may be able to speak to our policies, expectations, staff, and how they are held accountable. We certainly do hold staff accountable if there's not an adherence to our policies. Also, our Associate Director Harmon may be able to speak to this from a safe schools standpoint. So perhaps Associate Director Harmon maybe, and then Robertson, if you could chime in.
Sure. Through you, Chair McDonald, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, I can. I can hear too.
And thank you, Trustee McDonald. So, I mean, again, we would apply progressive discipline training to begin with. I mean, we have offered Policy 48 training throughout this fall. We have additional modules that are in place to offer that training for administrators. I would suggest that if progressive discipline is not applied directly or appropriately, typically that is dealt with through our complaint process. A parent may go to a trustee or to a superintendent. A superintendent then, a supervisory capacity, would follow up with an investigation and ensure that the principal, vice principal either correct the behavior or further training is put in place. So it would be through our staff management process that this would occur. And we don't have anything in place in terms of sort of I guess an outright accountability tool that is in place in schools each and every day. We do have staff such as our school support officers who are available to consult. We would expect our superintendents to do the same thing. If a principal does have a question or is unsure of how to proceed around progressive discipline, to ensure that they would have that opportunity to consult as well. So again, the way in which we handle this is through our training. It is through that consultation and support, and if there are situations that are inappropriately handled, those are handled through staff discipline, and there's an entire range of progressive discipline through to formal discipline that can be put in place for administrators who have not handled that appropriately.
Thank you, and we'll bring in Superintendent Robertson. You want to add something?
Yes, please. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Yes, I can.
Thank you, Chair. So my response is it's an interesting question because we're talking about progressive discipline with regard to our students, as I heard it in that regard, and definitely applies to our staff. And I know that when we were looking at this question, we were thinking about both levels of progressive discipline in that regard. Can you still hear me? So I would say, first off, with regard to our staff and our principals, with regard to progressive discipline and the approach of discipline in their schools, we definitely have an appeal process that's in place, and that is the level of oversight. That's the intended level of oversight. That's according to policy. But secondly, we also have expectations for our principals to adhere to policy, which includes applying progressive discipline, and that includes appeal, and it also includes a process of accountability to superintendents, and superintendents are accountable ultimately to the director, which is ultimately accountable to the Board of Trustees. So I think there's actually a very clear line of accountability that exists currently with regard to our expectation for progressive discipline, and I believe that in many ways it is very effective.
Thank you. So, so my question is, you talk about the appeal process. So let's assume that the student knows about the appeal process and they appeal and they are successful. And let's say your investigation shows that the staff member was indeed a bit heavy-handed or overreacted, right? Because even if you look at the directives, there are a lot of others that makes no sense. When Black students in particular get suspended. Look at elementary suspensions, 40% don't meet the criteria. So in such cases, is there any way so the appeal process occurs. Is there any way that we do follow up? Because Associate Director Harmon mentioned that training are offered for the educators. This question really deals with the adults, but is it mandatory? And what happens if a staff member doesn't do it? Or is there somebody to follow up that indeed the training occurred? So I'm just looking at the accountability piece. Do we currently have any or not?
So I can jump in there through you, Chair McDonald. Yes, for Policy 48 training, we have basically a sign-in process. So we do know all of the administrators who did attend. There's a small number who did not, either because they were on leave or for other appropriate reasons. We did have follow-up training set up for this spring. Unfortunately, COVID has interfered with that. Through our LEAD program, in which new administrators come on board, we also provide that same training, the similar modules, and we have more system training coming up planned for next fall as well. And all of this is, again, on a sign-in basis. We do follow the superintendents for those, principals, vice principals who have not attended the training. So there is accountability around the training to answer that part of the question. Was there a second part, Trustee McDonald?
With regards to the appeal process, so the student is suspended and they appeal, and while it gets through the process of the appealing the decision, it is discovered that the staff was indeed heavy-handed, right? It could be Tom hits Mary and he's suspended for 20 days. And that's absolutely wasn't necessary. It was she didn't lose an eye, or even give something like, Tom tells Mary to F-bomb and he's suspended for 20 days. Okay, this is the first offense. It's not warranted a 20-day suspension. So how do you deal with that? So the parent appeals the suspension, the parent wins. So do we have a conversation with the teacher and say, that really didn't warrant a 20-day suspension? Or the authoring of a hoop airing didn't really warrant a 5-day suspension? Things like that. How do we deal with that?
So through you, Chair McDonald, it wouldn't be a teacher who would be doing the suspending, and I'm assuming, Trustee McDonald, you meant the administrator.
I did. Sorry, I misspoke.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, it would depend upon a case-by-case situation. During the investigation, if it is found that flaws were made in the investigation that would suggest the principal, vice principal requires more training, that will be done. If there's any sort of malicious intent involved, we would discipline administrators similar to the way teachers are disciplined, similar to the way students are disciplined. So that will be put in place in terms of next steps. So again, you would have further training for those that would make mistakes. In terms of flaws, there would also be discipline put in place for those staff members who would have behaved knowingly in an inappropriate manner. And of course, there would be restorative processes put in place all the time with families and students as well. So all of that would be part of how these situations are dealt with.
Okay. And because I'm just wondering, so we have our training in terms of just knowing that it's being practiced. And I know a superintendent had mentioned to me, for example, if something like happens with an administrator, that information basically is housed with the superintendent. There's no central place where it could be accessed to know, okay, this is happening with this administrator. So I'm just wondering, is there a way to track and make sure that people are getting the support they need to be effective administrators?
So perhaps I can chime in at this point through you, Speaker. I think the question is about our process for progressive discipline with our administration, and we apply the exact same process for progressive discipline, which does include definitely expectations, training, but it also includes applying discipline, which is recorded in the employee's personnel file. So it is not something that remains simply with the superintendent. There is a process that we have in place for those types of measures. But I would also add that we also do have a level of oversight with regard to suspensions, and trustee mentioned suspensions of 20 days, that those would be known to the superintendent prior to them being applied. So there are a number of measures in place to support principals to help them to ensure that they are being accountable and applying measures of progressive discipline.
Okay, thank you. And then, so the superintendent if a situation like that overturn that decision? Yes or no? So like if the
Through you, Chair McDonald, sorry, the decision to suspend the student?
Yeah, so let's say that the superintendent says, no, I don't think wearing hooped earrings warrants a 20-day suspension. And they understand she has looked, or he or she has looked over.
Point of order, Chair.
Yeah.
Question has been answered.
Yeah, I think Trustee McDonald, I think they're answered a lot of your questions, and maybe it would be best if you just have a direct conversation with Associate Director Harmon or Superintendent Robertson. I think they can answer these questions directly for you. But I think they've answered everything about the disciplining and the accountability and the oversight process.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else wanted to speak to any one of these items? Okay, seeing none. What I'm going to do is ask Trustee Lawton, would you put this on the floor, or these items on the floor?
I will, thank you.
Trustee Crocker, would you second these?
Certainly.
Okay, let's start the voting process. Trustee Davies.
Favor.
Okay, Trustee Benjamin.
Yes, in favor.
Trustee Cameron.
In favor.
Trustee Lawton.
In favor. Thank you.
Trustee Crocker.
Aye.
Trustee Nar, student trustee, non-binding vote.
In favor, Chair.
Thank you. Trustee Aurora, student trustee, non-binding vote.
In favor.
Trustee K. McDonald.
Yes, in favor.
Thank you. Trustee Green, in favor. Trustee McDonald, chair, in favor. Okay, those are received. So now we move on to the OPSPA Connects, 12.1, 12.2. Let's put these on the floor, I guess, first, so we can speak to them. So, Trustee K. McDonald, do you want to put these on the floor?
Sure, I will.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Green, do you want to second these? Thank you. Does anyone want to make a comment or question before we go through the voting? Seeing none, I'll start at Trustee Davies. Trustee Davies. I unmuted you.
Favor.
Okay, perfect. Trustee Benjamin.
In favor.
Trustee Lawton.
In favor, Chair.
Thank you. Trustee Cameron.
Yes, in favor.
Trustee Crocker.
Yes.
Trustee Nar, student trustee, non-binding vote.
In favor.
Trustee Aurora, student trustee, non-binding vote. Trustee Aurora?
In favor.
Okay, thank you. Trustee K. McDonald?
In favor.
Trustee Green is in favor, and Trustee B. McDonald, chair, in favor. So we receive those. So we have no communications. We have no reports from trustee, or do we have any reports from trustee representatives or councils? No. So item 15, questions from board members. Do we have, I'll start down the bottom of the list and go through all of you. Trustee Davies, do you have any questions?
This time, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Trustee Benjamin, any questions?
I have one question regarding the Community of Care Learning and Support Plan. Is the Ministry of Education going to help the boards across the province by providing funding to meet the extra cost of developing our distance learning programs?
That's a good question. Just waiting to come. Oh, I can get it. Just be a sec. Okay, did it.
Through you, Chair, just in terms of our regular communication with the ministry at this point, they've just asked us to utilize the current funds that we have to support the programming that we put in place. So we haven't received any notification of any additional funding at this time, and I don't believe Associate Director Gill would have anything to add, but I certainly would open the floor to him if he wishes to comment.
Associate Director Gill, do you want to add anything?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Yeah, no, nothing to add. So far we have not received any information where Ministry has said that they will provide any additional funding. So, I mean, they could still change their mind, but nothing so far.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions, Trustee Benjamin?
No, thank you.
Thank you. Trustee Lawton?
None. Thank you,
Trustee
Chair.
Cameron?
No, thank you.
Trustee Crocker?
No, thanks.
Okay, Trustee Nar?
No, thank you.
Trustee Aurora?
I have a couple questions, if that's all right, Chair.
Yes, it is.
Thank you. And through you, Chair, this is regarding the Community of Care Plan. Well, first of all, thank you very much, Director Joshua, for the wonderful update. I do have a couple of questions, however, regarding staff training and communication for parents. So firstly, are teachers being offered any training for accessing or navigating these online platforms?
Thank you. Through you, Chair, that's a great question, and I'll say a few comments. Superintendent Graham may want to add, but we have, first of all, I will say outside of our board, the Ministry of Education has provided a number of opportunities for professional learning for staff across the province with respect to distance learning and using platforms through Brightspace, but also our team internally has created and for some time has created a number of modules for self-directed learning for our educators so that they can better understand how to use Brightspace for approaches to teaching and learning as well as assessment. Same for Google applications, and so those things are in place, and in the midst of putting together resources for this approach to learning, our team, number of people revamped and looked at the modules in place and have revamped them and updated them in a format that's very usable for everyone. On top of that, in this virtual world, we have assured our staff that they have connections to resource staff who are definitely willing and able to be online, but also available by phone to support staff if they need some one-to-one help as they're navigating through doing this type of learning in a distance way. So I'll offer an opportunity for Superintendent Graham if he wishes to add anything.
Thank you, Director Joshua. Through you, Chair. Yes, and in addition, Brightspace is our supported virtual learning environment. So our staff provided written resources for teachers to be able to read through and follow on their own. We provided instructional videos for teachers, and we also provided live webinars, interactive webinars for teachers and administrators. So there's been 360-degree support around our virtual and learning environment, and from what we're hearing, that has been well accepted and has been up and running in the system.
Thank you so much. That's absolutely amazing to know that teachers also have the support during this time. I know that many teachers, might have not used Brightspace or Google platforms to begin with before this pandemic that we are overgoing. So I think that it's great that our board is doing a lot to support those teachers. And I think the next topic would be about supporting parents. So I know that many parents, especially those who have language barriers or who are not able to understand the worksheets or assessments and homework that students are getting, they really do want to try to support their children during this time, but they're unable to. And I think the main reason of this would be the lack of flexibility with these online platforms and how teachers can't actually offer any instructional experiences for students, and it's more so just providing resources to facilitate learning. And I think that for parents at this time, I've heard a lot of concerns around them not being able to support their children, whether their children be in elementary schools and who do not have access to technology yet and are still waiting to hear back from our board about when their technology needs are going to be met. I think for many of students, especially in the elementary ages, parents are going to have concerns around engaging students in learning when work isn't being assigned. So I guess my next question would be about what supports there are for parents to facilitate learning at home, especially for students in the elementary ages, but also parents who have children in secondary school and where there is a academic disparity between both age groups, and if their parents can't support their children with their homework.
Now we let them know about 9.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. Again, excellent comments and questions, and certainly on our radar. Through you, Chair, I just appreciate the student trustees' recognition of the very diverse needs of many of our families in our communities and the need to support parents. So we do have and have continued to engage in the support from settlement workers and other support staff who are mindful of our families who are maybe English language learners and need to support students in unique ways. So that connection is definitely there. I would continue to encourage parents and families to have the connection through their teachers in the classroom and then to principals to ensure that the needs are articulated and that we are reaching out and providing that level of support through our various means with settlement workers and others. As mentioned in my report, our phase 1 was to ensure that we get the technology out into the hands of our students and ensure that their needs are met. But we are looking to alternatives to technology, recognizing that some of our learners will need alternative ways to access learning, and appreciate the comment from our student trustee on knowing that our families, our parents also need to know how they can best support. So this is in the works, and again, I'm making some general comments, but I will offer opportunities for my team, perhaps Superintendent Graham. I don't know if others may wish to chime in on the ways that we are supporting, but please know that these are definitely on our radar, and we know that it's taking some time, but our absolute plan is to ensure everybody is supported in every way as we move forward. And to my original comment that we will not penalize our students who are in situations where it's difficult and there's a challenge with accessibility. Our intent is to provide ways to support learning and improvement, but we will not be penalizing in any way because of hardships that they've had to incur in this situation. So Superintendent Graham, if you want to add anything, please do so.
Thank you, Director Joshua. I think you've covered it completely there. I don't know whether Communications Director Pereira wants to add in there. I know there was some translation work that was going on with some of our parent communications as well.
Through you, Chair, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
So yes, we did take a guideline document that assisted parents in ways to help their children learn from a distance, and that document was translated into our top 10 languages. Spoken in Peel. It was also shared with our settlement workers. In fact, our settlement workers did a lot of that translation for us, so we're super thankful for them. They also are providing it to, we also provided it, to our local ethnic media and asked them to share it on our behalf. We also shared it, that guideline document, with our local politicians, so MPPs, MPs, city councillors, regional councillors, and asked them to share it through their channels as well. So yes, we did do that. So thank you, Superintendent Graham, for that reference.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, Trustee Aurora?
Yes, I'm sorry, just two more. Thank you so much for that response, by the way. My next question is actually revolving video conferencing. So I know that it's something that our board was exploring, and we're also looking into issues with safety and any media permission concerns that we might have. And so my question would be for students who are taking language courses where a part of their course or course assessment would be oral presentations or oral examinations. So what recommendations have been made to teachers to continue on with oral assessments even if we are not permitting video conferencing as a platform?
So through you, Chair, that's a great specific question. I don't know if Superintendent Graham, are you able to respond to that question with regard to?
Sure. I think the good news is, as you've pointed out through your chair, that we are just finishing some technical work with both Google Meets and with MS Teams through Brightspace for video conferencing. There was some security work that had to be done in the background to make sure that those platforms were safe from a digital privacy perspective for both parents and students. We are just completing that work now, and our expectation is that we will be able to announce very soon that video conferencing will be available for teachers and the board to use with students. So in terms of your question about any oral presentations and all, then those would be able to proceed after that. I'm not certain if our COO, Antoine Haroun, wants to add anything at this point.
Thank you, Superintendent Graham, and through you, Chair McDonald. I think you've covered it well. Nothing to add at this point.
Thank you. Okay, you said you have one more question, Trustee Aurora?
Yes, thank you so much. This is actually a question from many of the student council members, and are wondering whether the board has discussed how student council elections will be taking place during this time.
Director Joshua?
Thank you. Through you, Chair, Superintendent DeMayor, are you able to come online, just speak to some plans with regards to elections?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, yes, we are proceeding with the student trustee elections. The normal timelines that were originally set are going to be followed through with. The elections, I believe, I don't have the dates in front of me, but I believe they're the 21st and 22nd of April. And the voting this year will all take place online. And students will be, we sent out a reminder email to administrators actually this morning, just to give a reminder to teachers to share with the students, to remind them that they will be able to vote online on the 21st and 22nd.
Thank you. Did I also see the government's even thinking extending the term to 2 years, or that's being debated? Yeah, it's being considered, but they're looking at trying to solve that problem too. Any other questions, Trustee Aurora?
No, thank you. But if I may follow up on that, Superintendent DeMayor, if you have any information on student council elections for individual schools, I'm not sure if this is something that's discussed at a board-wide level, but I do think that elections will be disrupted for student councils in individual schools.
Oh, I'm sorry, through you, Chair, I'm sorry, I misunderstood your question. I thought you were talking about the student trustee elections. No, actually, we hadn't considered the individual school level student activity council elections, but thank you for bringing that to our attention. I think that I could get Principal Barrio to check in with school principals to maybe find out if there is alternative processes in place, and we could follow up with you at a later date, I think, on that one.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
And with that, thank you for the question, and Superintendent DeMayor for your response. We'll certainly through our department we'll take a look at what some best practices are out there, and often what Superintendent DeMayor and his team do is once we've got a sense of those practices, we'll put some guidelines and suggestions out to our principals so that all schools have an opportunity to see how they might do this in an effective way in a virtual platform. So thank you for that.
Thank you very much, Director Joshua.
Thank you. Trustee Kay McDonald, do you have any questions?
I do.
Okay.
So my first question is, the ministry review found that the Board of Trustees is dysfunctional and fractured relationships are hindering the ability of trustees to work together in a cooperative and respectful manner. This is highlighted by the fact, well, you could see the over-policing of me and discrimination against me at this meeting, as well on January the 5th. Well, let me just say that it was my understanding that on January the 5th, 2020, the director, the chair, and vice chair received a letter from the Anti-Black Racism Working Group where they laid out their concerns about recent events at the board meetings, the anti-Black racism and other issues. Why was this letter not shared with the entire Board of Trustees? Secondly, I'm going to ask the chair, why did the chair, Brad McDonald, respond on behalf of the board without the knowledge of the board?
Okay, so I have to call that out of order. You unfortunately missed a private meeting where this was discussed, and the resulting action was taken as the board voted. So I can't talk about that in public. I'm sorry.
It was a private meeting discussion.
Yeah,
Thank
you missed a private meeting.
So could I ask you to let me know which private meeting I missed? Because I'm not aware of missing any private meetings.
Or it was in the in-committee, it was one of the in-committee, it was an in-committee meeting that went to, yeah, you and...
I could find out then which one it is, because I'm not aware of missing a private meeting.
Well, I shouldn't say private, I think it was an in-committee meeting. It was under, Vice Chair is saying to me that it was an in-committee meeting that you did not attend, and you sent your regrets that meeting, so as a result, you know, that issue was discussed, it was debated, and actions taken.
So if we had such a discussion, why was that not minuted? So since missing the meeting, I could have been caught up in the minutes.
We'll have to go look back, but all trustees were in the meeting were aware of the actions taken.
Okay, thank you. So could you please get back to me on that one in terms of why it was omitted?
Mm-hmm.
In the ministry report, it said individuals appeared to view community concerns of racism as attacks and disparagement of the PDSB, and some individuals even expressed that they felt the community's complaints of racism were unfairly slandering their particular roles and work within the PDSB. It is unfortunate that these educators, leaders, and trustees could not hear or are unable to discern the deleterious systemic discrimination that accentuates the ongoing community narratives of prejudice and harm, end quotation mark. My question then is, why did we as a board and administration, through the Director of Education, try to silence Mr. Ilumade with 2 warning letters and Mr. Urugu with a trespass letter?
That's out of order. You can't ask that in public. I'm sorry.
Okay. So my question will be, by giving unwarranted trespass letters, does this not constitute anti-Black racism?
No, we can't talk about that. We can't talk about the trespass letter. I'm sorry.
Okay. So I'm rephrasing my question. Yep. I'm asking you that when a community member, a random community member, not a named individual, is trying to advocate for the community, and we deliberately silence the person, does this not constitute anti-Black racism?
We can't specifically answer that question because it's generic. So that can't be answered. We cannot talk about the trespass letters. They have a process to go through if they want to deal with their trespass, but we can't be talking about it at the board table. I'm sorry. It's out of order.
Okay, because I'm confused. We can't talk about specific examples. We can't talk about generic examples. I guess we can't talk about anything.
We can't talk about generic examples because it doesn't include specifics to it. So you can't talk about generics, you can't talk about specifics, because we can't talk about trespass notices because they're all specific to a certain incident or incidences that led to their creation. And that can't be talked about.
There's a concern about if our board has a policy of illegally issuing trespass letters. How do you address that concern?
How do you address what concern? Sorry, I didn't understand.
Concern, if I as a trustee am concerned that the board is illegally issuing trespass letters, how do you address that concern? It can't be generic, it can't be specific. So how do you get it addressed?
First of all, you can't do it in the public type of setting.
It's a political and a public issue.
So yes, but we can't talk about the issues around the trespass letter in public. If you wish to have that in committee, we can have a discussion around a specific item, and we can bring legal in to talk about all those aspects associated with that specific item.
I would like it on a general level.
So you would like to have a general level on how trespass letters are issued?
Yes.
Okay, so again,
evidence? Or can you just look at a person and say, I don't like them because they're tall and black, they can't come to the board? Or we need evidence? Do we have to have concrete evidence? Or can somebody say, I don't like this guy, he hurts my feelings?
What we'll do is we can ask administration in committee to provide a report on how trespass letters are generated, because they're generated throughout our system.
Why is it an in-committee item?
So
Should the public know what not to do?
Please let me finish. So what we can do is, I said, bring a report, ask administration to bring a report in committee to talk about how the trespass letter process is. And you can then ask the questions associated around that.
Okay, so so the public is not allowed to know how trespass letters are issued at the Peel District School Board. Is that correct?
No, the conversation that we'll have in committee will involve legal, so that can't be made in public.
Okay, so how do you get a discussion about a trespassing policy at our board in the public?
Then we can ask that question when we're in committee to find out the answer to that.
Also, the Director of Education, at the last meeting, supplementary meeting, when I asked a question about appealing, said that he was going to get an answer. I have not gotten back an answer regarding appealing a trespass letter, because there was no information on a trespass letter provided to an individual. So I still am waiting to find out, how does somebody appeal a trespass letter? Can that be asked in public? Through you, Chair?
To the response to that, we're just waiting on legal's response. So that's why we haven't provided the response at this point in time. It will be coming.
Oh, so up until now, the board has been in existence. We have had no formal process on how to appeal a trespass letter. Is that correct?
Sorry, there's no formal what?
You said we are waiting on legal to provide information on how to appeal a trespass letter. So does that mean that currently we have no form of appealing, or no way for public to appeal a trespass letter?
We're waiting for legal to respond to that for us. We should have an answer.
Requires a yes or no. Does the Peel District School Board, as of April 15th, 2020, has a process in place to appeal a suspension letter?
A suspension letter or of a student?
Sorry, a trespass letter.
Okay.
I'm so exhausted. I'm getting confused.
I think we all
trespass letter.
I think we all are.
Excuse me, Chair.
Yes.
Is it not up to the person who has received the trespass letter?
So we're going to
find out how to appeal it?
We're going to ask in committee, our next in committee, to have a report, provide administration and lawyers to answer these questions to the trustees. Okay?
Through you, Chair, since Trustee Lawton spoke while I was speaking, the person in question has been trying to find out from the letter was issued how to appeal it, and the person has not been told how to appeal it. So the person has gone to his trustee, which happens to be me. So I'd like to be able to represent my constituent and find out the information for him. How does one appeal a trespass letter at the Peel District School Board? So it's over a month and we cannot get back to this individual.
We're, as I said, a response will be given. This is all a legal matter. It has nothing to do with the school board. So, because the trespass letter is something legal. So we're waiting for that verification, which we will hear in the our next in-committee meeting in less than 2 weeks.
Okay, so I gather that we have no mechanism for any member of the public to appeal a trespass letter, because you can't. There's no way to send.
Actually, it's not a process of appeal. You'll find out legally what that process is. I can't talk to it because I'm not legal, but it's not something we do in a process or procedure in the board. It's a legal matter, jurisdiction in court. So we'll hear about that in committee.
Okay.
Okay.
So it's very concerning that you have prohibited someone from attending any of our properties, and we cannot even tell an individual how to overturn it if they feel it's an injustice has been done to them, that an injustice has been done to them. Right? And again, I think that's quite problematic for the record. Question number 3. In the ministry review, it says, throughout this review, we consistently heard that the Peel District School Board has problems effectively communicating with their local communities. We understand from parents and community members that they are frustrated with the lack of communication and genuinely feel disrespected by senior administration and the Board of Trustees. On March 27th, 18 Black community organizations wrote the Board of Trustees to articulate their concerns about anti-Black racism in the board, as well as demands they had as a Black community organization to move forward. To date, there has been no acknowledgement of this letter, not even a noted, I will get back to you. There's no response to this letter, no Board of Trustees conversation about this letter. Why is it that this board, even after this review, continues to disrespect the Black community in Peel? That's my question. Okay, so before you respond, I'd like to draw your attention to the almost instantaneous response that was elicited when one particular group wrote board about an incident at a school that they were offended. And this happens to be a very powerful non-Black group, and they were offended by an incident that of student work, and they were responded almost instantaneously. So I'm asking again, why is it that we cannot respond to the Black community's concerns with the same amount of expediency or speed?
Well, thank you. That email was addressed to all trustees, so we're all accountable to decide to address it or not. So as chair, if you want to give me direction as a board, I will address that letter. And that's how the process has worked and will continue to work.
So the chair of the board, so the public is confused. So when you send a letter to the chair of the board, right, or you are addressed in the letter,
the practice is you're probably aware, is that I don't, as much as I speak for the board, and I could answer all the letters by myself, and that's typically done in other boards. The practice in our boards is to take direction, and from our trustees, the majority make that decision, and then I echo and write that letter. And that's how it's been done in the past, and that's how it'll be done in the future. So if you want to, as colleagues want to make a decision on how to address a letter, I'll write that letter.
Excuse me, that's a cop-out. Trustee Noka Krug had asked for a private session to address this letter, and every trustee, with the exception of me, Balbirsowi voted to not have the private session. So you're telling me
Trustee McDonald, you're out of order. That was an in-committee conversation, and you are not allowed to be talking about it. So I'm sorry, I'm going to have to cut you off.
Excuse me, Chair. I am a bit confused. Why is that out of order? You just told me that
it's out of order. You're talking about something that happened in committee. We're not allowed to talk about it in public. I'm sorry.
Okay. So my next question is with regards to the series of letters that have been sent to this board and are not being addressed. So we had a letter on March the 21st from each individual trustee received a letter from a staff member who at the March 10th meeting was told that she would get a response. A response was not forthcoming from any trustee. On January, the director, the chair, and vice chair received a letter from the ABR group.
That was answered. So move on, please.
On April the 9th, you got a letter regarding a constituent wanted to know how to appeal regarding his trespass letter. He has not gotten a response. April the 3rd.
So please, we've answered that question. Move on.
Well, I am going to move on because it is quite clear to me that the ministry, as the ministry report says, we urge the Peel District School Board leaders and community to come together to start the hard work of telling and hearing the personal truth about massiations and the magnitude of racism within the PDSB. And only after confronting these truths, acknowledging the miss, and accepting responsibility can the board undertake the remedial work of seeking reconciliation and setting metrics to assess the progress and success in community relations. So my question is, what are we trying to do based on my previous questions regarding the ABR working group letter? The questions about silencing Black community advocates, the disrespect of not answering letters.
Trustee McDonald, we can't be rehashing the same thing. The ABR group, trustees met.
Rehashing the same thing. You won't answer my question.
Please let me talk. So the trustees met, a decision was made, and an action was given to the ABR person in charge, and a response was given.
If the board is serious, as you said, Chair MacDonald, and if you're taking this seriously, you would just remove this trespass letter, because I think it's the right thing to do. I think actions speak louder than words. I can't get answers to any of my questions with regards to the Black community. When they write a letter, it doesn't matter who. If the Jewish Congress writes a letter because they're offended about something in the board, it is answered immediately. Every other group gets respect and is over. I am done, right?
Okay.
Because it is clear that you guys will continue to disrespect and ignore not only me, but my community. And I will not sit for it. Let the chips fall where it may. I am done.
Okay.
I will not be a part of lynching of my community. There's no honorarium big enough or no promise of any position that will ever lead me to sell out my community and sit idle. Why more than 30 years has passed since the Stephen Lewis report, and nothing has happened. In fact, since its review, it has gotten worse, right?
So is there a question here?
I would be insulted, right? That I could not look at another Black student, a Black staff, or Black parent, or any marginalized Peel District student member again. I would take my chances with anybody else, because it's clear that this board has no intention of working and doing good by the Black community. And you have demonstrated it clearly tonight.
Okay, any other, I guess that's the last. So Last questions. Now we're going to move on to public question period. So this is a virtual public meeting, and we're doing things in the virtual world. As I said at the beginning of the meeting that outlined the public question reminder, that everyone can send an email in, one question per email to public, P-U-B-L-I-C, questions, all one word, at peelschools.sb.com. We have 15 minutes to do the question period, and we'll start through the process and go through things. So the first question I have that we have is from Jordan Graywall. Seymour, why are principals suspending and calling the police on black students so often? So I'm going to hand that over to Director Joshua.
So, through you, Chair, I think this question refers to some work that we are addressing in terms of one of the ministry directives we specifically are looking at. We will be reviewing, or we are currently reviewing, our suspension data as it's presented to us now through the student census. We are able to see it broken down by identity of individuals, and we will be taking steps through the directives with consultation and support of our community, taking steps to address and eliminate the disproportionality evidenced in this data. So that is most definitely outlined in our ministry directives.
Ministry directives, thank you. So our second question, Gurdeep Singh. Why are so many white women guidance counselors?
Again, through you, Chair, just as I see the question, it speaks again to specifically one of our initiatives in the ministry directives, which will be an action plan around implementing a plan to look at and reform our guidance system in our schools. So we will be looking at meeting the needs and expectations of our students and families through supportive guidance. These types of questions will be addressed through that analysis and eventually, of course, the change in our approach.
That's great. The third question we have from Daniele. I'd like to know if it's possible for school councils to use the funds that have been raised towards the purchase of gift cards at grocery stores and big box stores for families who need the support during the pandemic. We know that there are families in our schools community who are struggling right now, and the funds either in the school year will now go unspent. Please advise if this is acceptable use of school funds.
So through you, Chair, first of all, thank you so much for the question and comment. It really speaks to a significant issue that we are all very mindful of in terms of those in our communities who are most vulnerable through this situation, those living in poverty and certainly experiencing this type of vulnerability because of the circumstances around COVID-19. So I appreciate the question. I'll say a couple of things, but I do want to give Associate Director Gill and perhaps Controller Alatashe an opportunity to speak to allocation of funding. I would like, because of this question, I'd like the public to be aware of our efforts through our Peel Learning Foundation to ensure that we are repurposing and purposing our funds that have been collected to work with community organizations to provide things like gift cards to families who are clearly very vulnerable in and around our school communities. So those efforts are definitely in place. Our poverty working group is also putting together a number of resources and supports and guidelines for schools and school administrators as to how they can best support our families in great need. So that the concept of repurposing school council funds, if I could just ask Associate Director Gill and or Controller Alatashe to respond to that, I think it's a very good suggestion.
Okay, so
thank you, Director Joshua. We did send out some information to the schools, I believe, last week. So I'm going to ask Controller to maybe provide or explain, provide some background on that information.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, so what we did was, through you, Chair, is we asked the schools to look at the funds that they typically would use for these purposes to support the communities, whether through breakfast programs or other initiatives, and look at the agreements that they sometimes have with these agencies, and then look at opportunities to still provide those needs through things like Director Joshua mentioned, such as gift cards or other means to provide this type of support. And so we've given direction to the principals to look at the funds that they have remaining and look to allocate it in similar ways to support the families that are in need.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I think that's something we're all concerned about and trying to figure out. I know, you know, in a lot of schools we have breakfast and programs, and those are for, you know, students that need that. And now we don't have the schools running, those programs are not running. So there's a lot of need out there, and we're trying to do our best that we can to solve this in a good and quick way. But it's very difficult now, being so out of touch with the community in this social distancing environment and isolation that we have to be in. Okay, right now I have no more questions from the public. Seeing no more questions, then we're going to move on to adoption of the in-committee report. Trustee Green, do you put that on the floor? Trustee Davies, do you second it? Trustee Davies, do you second it? Okay, Trustee Benjamin, do you second it?
Yes.
Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. And to adjournment, so I'm going to ask Trustee Lawton, do you move it, put it on the floor, that move the adjournment?
Oh, yes, I do.
Okay, and Trustee Cameron, do you want to second that?
I will.
Okay, those all in favor for adjournment, say aye.
Aye.
Thank
Aye.
you. Have
Aye.
a great evening and keep safe, and hopefully soon we'll get out of this. Take care.